All right, Chair Mealy, all yours.
Okay. This is a regular meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission. It is Thursday, May 14th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Obviously, we're meeting by Zoom, and we will continue until all items are complete. And I'll ask the mayor to lead us in the pledge. I'm sorry, I don't know how to turn it off.
Unplug it.
That's okay. Give me a second to get the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the,
Which it
for
stands.
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. I'm just waiting to get rid of the flag now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, my screen froze for a moment and I couldn't stop it.
Same person that called on my phone. Okay, now we're up to deletions and changes to the agenda. Does anybody have anything?
Chair, I have one.
Okay,
Would like to make a proposed change to item 11 and instead of that being an action item, have that be a discussion item. And if you want to leave it under general business, you can, or move it under commission comments might be more appropriate.
okay. I agree with, and I don't know how everybody else feels. I agree with not having it as an action item tonight, but I would like the city manager and the fire chief to make a presentation. Larry, Bobby, when do you think that, if everybody agrees to doing that? First, let's see that. Do I have consensus to not have it be an action item tonight, but just to have Bobby and Larry do a presentation?
I totally agree.
Okay.
That's Ken.
All right.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the radios, they're a separate item. Are we gonna
Yeah, well, when we get
pass
to
that through too?
11, we can do the radios first, and then, because that is something we've already agreed to pretty much.
Yeah.
So then we'll still do the resolution, and then you may be making amendments to the resolution as we go into that. And then maybe after you do whatever you're going to do with the resolution, go into discussion on the rest. Is that what I'm
Okay.
hearing?
Yeah, I don't really want to hold up the radios. I
Right,
mean, that's something they've been waiting for.
agreed. Okay, Larry, do you want to do it when we get to number 11, or do you want to do it under comments? Or Bobby, either one of you?
Larry, you're muted.
Muted.
Larry, you're muted.
Yay. Okay, sorry about that. I think if we just leave it where it's at and just make it a discussion item, I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, Bobby, you good? You're muted too.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything they want to change on the agenda? Okay, that we'll move on. We have two proclamations, Linda.
That's what I did.
Okay, can you hear me?
And Larry, mute yourself again or turn your TV off.
Oh, is that what I'm hearing? Larry, is your TV on?
Oh, sorry.
I didn't know what I was hearing. Okay, Linda.
Channel 13.
Okay, the
Yeah.
first proclamation I have is a proclamation recognizing National Hospital Week, where health comes first. Whereas National Hospital Week 2020 highlights the adage of every hospital, health system, and person involved in keeping our communities healthy, that health comes first. And whereas now more than ever, this important week gives us all the opportunity to highlight our hospitals, health systems, and healthcare workers and the innovative ways they are supporting the needs of their community members during this pandemic. And whereas with that in mind, this year's celebration of hospitals, health systems, and healthcare workers is taking the form of a week of thanks, where people can participate from the safety and comfort of their homes while healthcare heroes go to work fighting against COVID-19. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and city of Flagler Beach, Florida, does hereby recognize National Hospital Week in the city of Flagler Beach and encourage residents join in this effort to help celebrate National Hospital Week and the great work that goes on every day in America's hospital. And we will give this tomorrow to Advent Health.
There's nobody from Advent Health online today.
And we're going to deliver it tomorrow when we go there
Okay,
to deliver the pizzas.
It's,
okay.
Linda, if I may, before you start that next proclamation, is all the commissioners aware of what we're doing tomorrow?
Yeah, we got an email from Penny.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's okay. You get there about 10:45, they do a photo op at 11, and then you guys can disperse however you want to.
Tell him to call my phone. I'm on the phone with Fred.
Okay.
Was there any questions about tomorrow?
No?
Fred, we'll do it in a minute.
Okay. Sorry, Linda, to interrupt. Go ahead, please.
That's okay. All right, and the next proclamation is recognizing Women's Lung Health Week. Whereas every 5 minutes, a woman in the US is told she has lung cancer. And whereas lung cancer is the #1 cancer killer of women in the US. And whereas the lung cancer death rate in women has almost doubled over the past 37 years. And whereas advocacy and increased awareness will result in more and better treatment for women with lung cancer and other lung diseases and will ultimately save lives. And whereas Lung Force is the national movement led by the American Lung Association with the mission of making lung cancer history, uniting women to stand together with a collective strength and determination to lead the fight against lung cancer and for lung health. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and city of Flagler Beach, Florida, does hereby designate the second full week of May as Women's Lung Health Week throughout Flagler Beach and encourage all residents of Flagler Beach to learn more about the detection and treatment of lung cancer.
Probably doesn't understand.
And do we have somebody, Penny?
He has somebody
Hold
to
on.
send it to, yes.
I have somebody to send it to. I'm trying to see if they're in the gallery. Hold on one second. I don't see either of the ladies in the gallery, so I can mail it to him. I have one made up to mail to him.
Okay, great. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Penny. We don't have Bob's, what, sorry? Did you have something else? I heard somebody, no? Penny, are we okay?
I'm sorry, I was on the phone. We're having a little technical difficulty.
Are we okay to move on?
you're okay to move on, but I just want all of you to know, instead of just usually how it pops up on YouTube, that it just shows the speaker at the time. Right now it's showing the gallery. So everybody, so nobody pick your nose.
Pick your friends, but don't pick your nose.
That's right.
And I don't know what you did by saying that, but it just switched and now it's fixed.
All right, what I'm seeing is 4 of us across the top and the big county sign.
And you
In the
can
middle.
do that on your end. Touch the top right corner,
Oh,
And-
okay.
gallery
All
view.
right, I'm back. Yeah. Okay. Where are we? Bob Snyder's not with us, right?
I sent him the invitation.
Okay, so I guess we don't have an update.
Madam
And
Chair.
Al Hadid had emailed us a couple of times.
He
So-
was, he had a presentation that Carlos was popping up, I know. Let's see.
Oh,
I just brought Al in.
Okay. Okay, Al
Yeah,
should
he's
be,
here.
Chair,
I'm only seeing your eyes and your hat.
Larry wanted to say something when you were talking about Bob, I believe.
Oh,
Rick, Commissioner, I appreciate that. The only thing I want to ask you, Madam Chair, is based on the discussion that was held with Bob and our police chief this morning about the boardwalk and things of that nature. I'm not sure if you want to go ahead and cover that now, since it does involve our health department, or do you want to save that for later on the agenda?
I think when you get to your comments, if that's okay,
Whatever
at
you
the end, you all right with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Al, can you move your screen so I see more than your eyeballs?
It's the webcam. Maybe if I get closer, how's that?
That's
See
better.
More of me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, good. So am I on now? You,
Yes.
you all right, my point?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
good
I want
evening.
I want to give you an update on the beach project. As I think you know, I've been sending updates. Now, I haven't sent all the updates to every commissioner. Actually, I probably sent about 4 or 5 updates this week alone to Larry and to Matt Downey, who's helping me a lot, and very much appreciate their efforts. Yesterday, as you probably know, we did a walkabout. And what I mean by that is we actually walked 12 blocks and stopped at every residence or business that had not given us an easement, where we didn't have clear documentation that one was on the way, and engaged individuals. It was very productive. We did gain some easements from doing that. We discovered a lot of new things. And these are not necessarily going to be surprising to you at this late date with how long the program has been in effect, but it's something you need to be aware of, something that you need to possibly use when you talk to people. Okay, we did have a couple of people who had no idea about the program. And it could have been, and I don't want to mention names or anything like that. I mean, it can easily be that they were embarrassed, that they didn't want to admit that they knew about the program, and, you know, they had kind of sat on it and put it off. You know, their lives are busy. Everybody's under a lot of tension with the pandemic and whatever else is going on in life, economic stress, all of that. So I don't fault anybody for saying, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about this. But for those people, we did make some inroads by just really going through and giving a basic explanation. We also found an owner who had a question. And because they had that question and they misinterpreted our materials, they decided not to sign. So we knocked on the door and came to the door and said, you know, I looked at it, I thought it was a great program, but XYZ, I'm not signing. I don't understand how come. So he gave us his interpretation of the materials. It was incorrect. Not a fault on him. I don't fault him whatsoever. I wish he would have called. He didn't call. He just looked at it and analyzed it, came in, said, nope, there's a deal killer in there. I'm not doing it. And then we explained, no, I'm sorry. The language could have been clearer. You misunderstood. He said, oh, okay, I'll sign. I'll send it right in. So we actually have already received his. So we did really well. Now we ran into some really tough characters. When I say tough, I don't mean strong, intimidating. I don't mean that. But what I meant was that just were not open to reason, that were really fixed in their views. Some of their points were legitimate, I have to tell you, well, how come all of a sudden now we're starting to do the repair? I mean, this stuff should have been done a long time ago. And we would explain, and some people may not understand that. How come all of a sudden? And I know that you all know the reasons, but I want to repeat them and emphasize them because you may need to do that for people. How come? Is this a Johnny come lately program and all of a sudden we're rushing it up? No. We were off of the map for disaster declarations related to beaches. And all of you know that, right? There is no doubt in anyone's mind, right? No doubt. So how come we have the attention now? Why? Why? It's because we were on national news for Hurricane Matthew. People saw the incredible devastation and we drew the attention. Can you imagine the calls that went to the Army Corps? How can that happen? How can there be no repair? Okay. How come there's no response? That's why we got on the national map and why we got included in the funding. But of course, that was married with the fact that we were always eager, that we always pressed for it. So we got it because we have been diligent about it. And finally, somebody noticed us, even though we're a tiny rural place. So that may take a while for people to set in, for it to set in for them. Why? Because this all of a sudden, some people are very, very distrustful and they don't understand why now. Okay. There are some people, two incredibly, that thought, well, I don't need to sign this because the sand will fill it. My neighbors, they'll get the sand and their sand will fill in front of my lot. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute. So you're going to hope over a period of time that the sand is going to fill in front of your lot and protect you, when right now, if you sign this piece of paper, you will immediately get so many hundreds of thousands of cubic yards across this beach that you will have your sand right away and you don't have to hope for it. I don't understand the logic. There are people that are disconnected from the logic. Now, I want to present a point that is something that we discovered, and I'd like Carlos, I would really appreciate if you would play the video. It's about 6 blocks. And I want you to see this. Those are the street destinations, okay? The insurability of property for owners that do not sign the easements. Pretend like you're an insurance person that wants to rate whether you're going to insure somebody. You're an underwriter, and you find out that one of these owners did not sign up for this easement. And how will you interpret it? When you look at the records, you're going to see that you're going to believe, you're going to perceive that they intentionally and knowingly turned down a fully subsidized, engineered mitigation measure that would increase the degree of protection for the property. So what do you think they're going to do? What would you do if you were being assigned the underwriting responsibility? You're going to tell the insurance company, do not insure this property. It is a high risk. They didn't agree to the mitigation measure, and their actions reflect a total reckless disregard of the protection of their property. Where else will that spill into? That's going to spill into anybody wanting to get financing from a lender for the purchase of a property, for a reverse mortgage, for some sort of financing that is based on the collateral of the property. what do lenders do? They examine the collateral. And when they find out the same thing, that for some reason, this was a person that hoped that the sand would migrate in front of their property and protect it, they are not going to be very eager to loan the money. So even if a person says, well, it's okay with me, I'm willing to handle this, but they're not going to live over the 50 years of this maintenance program. And they may want to sell that property. They may need to want to borrow on that property. They may want it to go to an heir. What about a proposed purchaser who finds out that they can't get financing because of the tremendous amount of negative information that will be in the history of that particular property? I hope that people understand the consequences, the financial consequences that extend more than just you're leaving yourself exposed, but you truly are impacting the future value of your property. So I think you see it is a reminder of the degree of damage that has been sustained and the effort to try to correct it. So I think that sends a convincing message. Thank you, Carlos, for playing that. I do want to report to you that because of our walkabout, that we did get another commercial property. And I've focused very much on commercial properties. I see them as keystones. For instance, the Topaz, you all know that. And right after the Topaz, right after that, we got 5 easements, right, just based on getting the Topaz. Well, Barry Griffin of the Whale Watch Motel, we got his easement. That leaves 2 commercial properties left of all the ones in that whole stretch from 6th to 28th. And that is the Beachfront Motel and the Flagler Beach Motel. And the Flagler Beach Motel, we have made a lot of progress toward working toward getting an easement. And I hope to be able to have that by the end of the week. But it's very important, I think, for us to have all the commercial properties, because it signals to residential owners that someone has really looked at this from a dollars and cents standpoint and decided that this is the thing to do to protect one's property. So now you probably know from the reports that I provided you that the police chief did accompany us on that walkabout. Suzanne Johnston, the tax collector, and Renee Flint, one of her deputies, also came, and we engaged the citizens that we were able to find at home or in their businesses. I want to tell you this. We ran into people that were walking on the streets. They wanted to know what the heck we were doing. We wore the fluorescent vests. And to a person, they talked about how strongly they supported the project. There were a number of people who volunteered to call other people. There were a couple of owners that we did talk to that said they wanted to help and get their neighbors. They were very concerned about their neighbors who hadn't signed. Now, I know that I have expressed to you before that I'm going to give you a list of those that we find that are really challenging to see what you might be able to do with it. This has been a work in progress. Every day we learn something new about dealing with this project. I have delayed sending you that list because I figure when that list goes, there are a number of people who've asked for it under the public records law. When we put that list together, we've not put that hard to get. Let's put it that way. Let's call them hard to get. I don't want to give them any negative connotation other than hard to get. Well, there are going to be people visiting their property, calling their property. There are a couple of people that were on the sidewalks that told us, they said, you tell us who hasn't signed and we'll take care of it. I said, what do you mean you'll take care of it? I was worried about, what am I unleashing here? They said, no, it's okay. We're going to picket. We're going to picket their properties. So I'm thinking, okay, First Amendment, well, they probably can. So I don't want to unleash all this fury on the hard to get until they earn their spot of hard to get, until we exhaust all the means of making sure they understand and answer as many of their questions as we can. So that's where we are. I'm not ready to do that yet. In fact, if you go to the website right now, you see we have 100 easements that have actually been recorded. Remember, we only enter somebody on the recorded list when it actually goes to the courthouse and is recorded and becomes effective as to the real property. All right. Now we have 8 others that we know. We've had 3 in hand. We can't record till tomorrow. And there's some en route. So we have another total 8 that have come in. That puts us to 108. That gets us closer to our goal. We still have other people in process. What does in process mean? Well, for example, we got an easement that we're going to be able to record tomorrow because the individual, the property owner, wanted to do it, but he had to get a certificate from an LLC that authorized him to execute the document, and that took a while for it to arrive in order to perfect that easement. There's, I think I've mentioned this before, there are people who need probate orders. So there's various things that people need that are of a paperwork nature, but we feel good about those folks. So our hard to get number, which is reflected in on the Shore Up the Shore website, is pretty much kind of your hard to get. And as you also know from us, you can go right on the map and you can find out who these people are. We've added a new color. I put that into the report to you. We put in a yellow color. That means they're in process. It means they're not hard to get. We have every reason to think that they're going to come through, but a number of times I found people telling me, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, but then they don't do it. And that's not uncommon. That's life. So we're going to keep them in yellow. If we get signs that they're not going to come and deliver, we're going to put them into that hard to get list. Like I said, they can earn their way into the hard to get list. Now, what can you do now? You're waiting for me to give you this list. You know, I said it in my last report. You received from us a letter that went to all the property owners, signed by the county administrator. Post it on your Facebook if you got it. Email it to your friends. Hey, do you know about this? Maybe they don't own property, but everybody has a stake in this. Actually, in my view, everybody in Flagler County has a stake in every one of those owners along that beachfront signing that easement. That is the heart of our community. It is the heart of our county. It would be outlandish to turn down, somehow compromise getting $25 million. Finally, after all these years of federal and state money, to have a few people expose the community to incredible risk. I'm saying this in a very emphatic way because this is what I believe. And I need to set the fires. The fires need to start raging, that we've got to step forward and protect our community. So if you have any way to get the information out, get it out. I'm giving you the information when I do these updates. I'm doing it right now. You're getting the talking lines. Take the ones you like. Take the ones you're familiar with and use them. You don't have to wait for my list. Educate the public. That is so important at this point. You will get my hard to get list. And I hope you look. Oh, wait a minute. I got a little point here. Today, I talked with Mr. Bellhumer. I told about, we talked about some of the people that were hard to get. And lo and behold, I mean, some, I say they're hard to get, they're not necessarily guilty of anything. Like, for instance, we have one who's a doctor. He's not a doctor here. He's a doctor in another community. So we try to call him. His office is closed because of the pandemic. We can't reach him. You can imagine, right? He's shut down. So Mr. Bellhumer happens to know an engineer in the same town where that doctor practices. And so that is a way that we're going to try to get, can you imagine how hard it is to get the attention of a doctor now after they've been shut down? Now they're starting to open, their patients are coming back. It's going to be very hard. Some people, it's going to be hard to get their attention. So we just need to be very creative about trying to exhaust all the ways we can get to them. So bottom line, I appreciate your help. I want to tell you, Matt Downey was excellent on the walk. I think we went from 9:30 to 1 o'clock, 9:30 to 1 o'clock, covering however many of those blocks there were. So 12 blocks. So we think we got a greater understanding of what's out there. We think we're going to continue to bring these easements, but I'd like us to be at 100%. I want you to think about, this is a wall we're building. I want you to imagine, if you can't figure out the wall, the kind of wall I'm thinking about, I want you to think of a medieval castle. If you were building a medieval castle, would you leave any opening for an enemy to get in? No. We need to build a wall that's impenetrable, that is as strong as it can possibly be. And for that, we need everybody to participate. So hopefully for you citizens that are listening to this, you get the message and you also carry the torch to save Flagler Beach and to save Flagler County. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. That was a very thorough report. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
I do,
Okay.
Larry here. First of all, if I go to court, I'd like to have you with me. That was great closing arguments.
I'm the closer.
Absolutely. The first thing I wanted to ask is, these people understand that their insurance is impacted by their decision on this?
I don't believe they are, sir.
Okay. The other question I wanted to ask is so are we saying that the Beachfront Motel is yet to make a commitment?
That's correct. It has not.
And what's your feeling on that one? Because I know you and Matt made a visit there.
No, I have not.
Okay. Because
The reason I've not made a visit there is because I received a letter quite a while ago, about 6-8 months ago, that there was a lawyer that was representing him.
yes.
I did happen to talk to that owner, but totally on a different basis. The county was going to go out and rent, temporarily rent motor court type motel rooms for first responders who might need a place to quarantine. So they asked me, because they knew I was working on the beach, if I could call the hotels, the ones that have the motor, you drive up to the door and there's no lobby. You go straight into your room. So it's safe for COVID purposes. So I did call him to find out the interest, if he would be wanting to put in a quote, and the issue of the dune restoration came up, and I answered his questions. And then he said, well, I want to talk to my attorney. I said, oh my gosh, are you represented? I can't be talking to you. So anyway, he said, well, that's all right. That's all right. My lawyer's not worried that I'm going to do something stupid. And I said, no, I don't mean that. I'm just not supposed to talk to you if you're represented. So
Okay, because I really
that's the extent of my discussion.
I really feel like that, based on what the city has done, putting in the dune walkover, that, and I know, Matt, I know you're on the line, and I'll just leave it up to you guys to handle that. Last but not least, my question is, how are we doing with the Corps of Engineers on our deadline?
Oh my gosh, we're doing great. I didn't give proper credit there. The Corps has been absolutely incredible. Okay, this is where we are. They have given us to July 1, but we don't want to go to July 1. And that's explained in that letter that was just sent out Monday. And that is, the reason is that right now we're not missing it. We're not missing the schedule. But at some point, the ability to commence on a certain date is going to get put off for every day we're late. Let me explain. Whenever we come to the end of this easement work, then their engineers have to go and finalize the plan. If there are any cutouts, people who don't sign up, there'll be holes there, so they'll design around that issue. Then that's when they put it out to bid. Then the bids will come back within 30 days. So if we can finish all of this easement work by the end of May, we won't suffer. So how do we suffer if we go past that date? Well, I want you to think about this. The closer we get to the winter seas, the rough seas, it can push our project into next spring. We want to get this done before December, before mid-December.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, we know money's going to come. Money's getting tighter and tighter based on the situation we're dealing with right now. And it's all money. But I guess my last question is, I think it's important people understand, and I'm not sure how well of a job we're doing, but people need to say, listen, if you don't, this is not a project that's a benefit to the county. It's a project that can benefit your insurance. My question is, from a legal standpoint, if they don't participate in this, is it going to affect their insurance premiums?
If their insurance,
Potentially?
if their insurance company knows about it, whenever they get their premium renewal or anything that may happen of record to the property,
So we
they
don't have a
could become
right,
apprised of it.
so we don't have a right to contact their insurance company?
Do you? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, I mean, yeah, because I mean. the
I'd
first-
rather you ask Drew.
That's an area that gives me a little bit of heartburn, because if they were to lose their insurer or something like that, right or wrong, I wouldn't, if I were advising somebody or if I were looking for work as a lawyer, I'd be starting to think about intentional interference with the contractual relationship.
Well, but Drew, and that's a very good question, because I know I've done many a roadway projects where the legal environment, which right now is you and Al, they get involved in roadway projects way before the roadway project is actually getting to a certain point, letting the homeowners know this is your rights. This is what your rights are based on, a roadway project, buying 10 foot of right of way or 20 foot of right of way to do a 4-lane roadway project. And I feel like this is no different to a certain point. So I'm surprised that the legal group out there is not getting involved in this, going, hey, we're here to represent you on your best interest. But I'm not seeing that. I see like we got a 2-person team out there with you and Al trying to give people advice, going, listen, you might want to think about this, because at the end of the day, your insurance may be affected. And are we doing the right thing by not letting them know that?
Well,
I think what Al said earlier is that Al absolutely has been telling the owners that. The question you asked was as to telling the insurers.
Well, absolutely. I mean, our responsibility as civil servants is to make sure that we take care of the citizens, whether they know how to take care of themselves or not. So all I'm saying is, we're letting them know that this project can actually maintain their insurance stability, or it can hurt their stability. It's not like we're trying to say, hey, you don't do this, your insurance is going up. We're just trying to say, hey, listen, if you don't want to do this for whatever reasons, you don't like government, please call your insurance company and talk to them about this. You live on A1A, because once that road fails, what's next? Your property, whether it's the hotel at 16th, beachfront, anything else. So, I'm just spitballing here, but all I'm saying is that these people need to understand, by making this decision, if it's a decision for whatever reason, by all means, for your best interest, John Q. citizen along A1A, please consult with your insurance carrier. Am I missing?
I can assure you, Mr. Newsom, that now that we have the number that we have left outstanding, those of us where we don't have paperwork in process, yes, we will be telling them this. I definitely try to explain the consequences of the choices. It is voluntary. I mean, they can knowingly, well, I don't know, knowingly, but they can consciously decide not to give their property the maximum protection that we think is best for them. They can do that. They're permitted to do that. But there are consequences, serious consequences to that. And that's why a number of people are stepping forward, like the tax collector, like the property appraiser, who are very much concerned about the economic health of Flagler County and Flagler Beach, to have given us time. The clerk's office has been incredible in how they expedite the recording and the distribution of the easement. So we've been getting tremendous cooperation within our own local agencies, where all of us, and I haven't heard any contrary view, where all of us believe in the critical importance of this project to the future of the whole county, of Flagler Beach, and of the whole county.
Yeah, and the main thing, like I said, at the end of the day, I just want people to understand, it's not you know, whether you like Larry Newsom or your city commission or your county commission, at the end of the day, I want to be able to look at a person and say, listen, this is what's best for you. You know, this is what's going to protect your property. Yeah, in the end game, it's good for the whole beach. But at the end of the day, it's also good for you from money that actually comes out of your pocket. And because that's one of the things I look at too, is you don't have to like local government, but think about what's going to impact you long term. And that's really all I wanted to mention. And Al, I appreciate your hard work on this. You look like you've aged a couple of years on this project, by the way.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ken?
I would just offer this up as an observation, but I would think based on social media that insurance companies will probably find out about this tomorrow.
Yeah. Al, do you have a response for him?
What's that?
Ken, you want to say it again?
I said, Al, that based on the traffic of social media and the media itself, I would suspect that some insurance companies will probably receive some calls tomorrow if
Maybe.
they're not in fact watching right now.
Maybe.
Al, I'm sure you did do this, but the people are aware that they won't be able to build future dune crossovers?
Yes, that message was put out. And by the way, we had a number of people respond and expedite their paperwork because they wanted to make sure that they could preserve their right to keep their dune walkover after it was damaged and destroyed, and if they wanted to rebuild it, or if they wanted to be able to have one in the future, or be able to sell the property. We found them in all categories. People want to be able to sell their property and make sure that if they had a purchaser, that they could say to that person, and you have the right to build a walker.
Okay.
That's a very important, very, very important conclusion that the city reached. And by the way, for that, thanks to the city manager, your city planner, the city attorney, and the building department, all working on that in a very focused way.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Okay, Al, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Chair Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder is, he was on the
Oh.
phone, but we didn't see his name. So I think Jared or Carlos is gonna plot him up, and he does video, but he is available by phone.
Okay, great.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Hello, Flagler Beach Commissioners and Mayor Linda. Yes, it's Bob from the Health Department, and I'm so glad that you have included me in your update opportunity here. It's fantastic. Appreciate it very much. I would like to give you an update on 3 priorities for the Department of Health in Flagler, and it holds for all the 67 departments of health statewide, and that is testing, contact tracing, and our support and help for our nursing homes and long-term care facilities. So what I would suggest is, this is what I do. First thing in the morning, I go to www.floridahealthcovid19.gov. And what I do is I go to the county report. So you can click on that, and it is a one-pager. And it's got 90% of the information that I want to eyeball as health officer every morning. So this is the county report. I'm just going to highlight just 3 or 4 things. This is as of May 14th at 10 a.m. Total positive confirmed cases in Flagler County is 148 as of this morning, but we added 4 more today. So when you see the report tomorrow, it'll be 152 positive cases. The other thing that I'd like to see is there's a race and ethnicity breakdown of number of cases by race, ethnicity, including hospitalizations and deaths. The reason why I want to look at that is to see if there's a disparity, or to see if there is, for example, hypothetically, a huge increase in COVID-19 cases among our Hispanic population. So that's the reason to look for that. Next is I want to know, okay, so what's the state of hospitalizations related to COVID-19? And although this county summary shows cumulative hospitalizations for the county, which is now 16, I'm more interested in knowing, so how many cases do we have related to COVID-19 in the hospital right now today? Now, unfortunately, the Department of Health in Tallahassee does not report that stat, but I'm letting anyone who wants to know what that number is, I'm going to let them know. And right now it is 1. So we got 1 patient in the hospital related to COVID-19 symptoms that's being cared for. The reason why that's important, because like the number of cases, it's an indicator. The next thing I look at is there's a 14-day report. There's a chart, a little chart here that basically tells us in the last 14 days for each day, the number of electronic lab reporting results from all the labs that are reporting results for Flagler County. They have to do it electronically to our data surveillance system called Merlin. So, for example, on May 10th, we got 106 lab results that were reported to Tallahassee, and that could be either negative or positive, but 106 results were reported and there were 0 positives. So that means that of those 106 results reported, all were negative. And for the last 6 days, 394 test results were reported, and we only had 1 positive. So that is a tremendous, wonderful trend for our county. The other 2 indicators on this 1-pager is what I look at is the weekly count of ED visits for influenza-like illnesses. So of complaints reported to our emergency department, what is the trend for flu-like illnesses? Also, what is the trend for ED visits as the main complaint being a COVID-like illness? And that is on the downward trend as well. So if I take these kind of 4 to 5 indicators, it's very positive for Flagler County. Now, we got to be cautious. This is cautionary because I think everyone knows that, this is not behind us. Until a vaccine is discovered, until a antiviral medication is broadly available, we're still going to have cases and we're still going to have deaths. It's just that in Flagler County, in Flagler Beach, all our communities, everyone has done a tremendous, wonderful job in social distancing, hand hygiene, teleworking, telehealthing, just keeping a distance from each other. We see more and more people wearing masks. So these are the things that we want to do and continue to do to avert a huge transmission of the virus in our community. But regarding testing, that is continuing. Azalea Health, that was called Aza Health, our federally qualified health center on the Parkway, our urgent care centers like MediQuick, our hospital, our health department, my team, and the community testing site at Daytona State College, the Palm Coast campus, that is still happening. We were challenged by the governor and by the Surgeon General to test at least 2% of our population. Wants every county to test 2%. Well, we met that goal on Monday, May the 11th. The goal was to get that accomplished by the end of May. And in Flagler County, we nailed it by May the 11th. But we're still testing. We tested 82 people today at Daytona State College campus site. We're going to be testing next week. The big change for next week is we're going to give the Advent Health Lab a break. They've been using the lab from Texas, And unfortunately, we still have people who tested 10, 14 days ago that still haven't gotten their test results from the Advent Health Lab, but that lab has just been overrun. The volume has been out of sight. And so we're still waiting for the test results for a lot of people. That will probably change the total positive case results for Flagler County. So we're going to give Advent Health Lab a break. And on Monday, starting next Monday, we are going to be using Quest Labs. So that be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So our goal is to keep testing 3 days a week at the Daytona State site. And we're going to be loosening the criteria for testing. Basically, we're looking for people who have one of the 9 symptoms now for COVID-19. You just got one, whether it's the cough, the fever, shortness of breath, a loss of taste and smell, headache that just doesn't go away, the fever. There's 9 of them. You got one of those, we want to test you. And as far as I'm concerned, the announcement is going to be, if you feel like you have been exposed to a positive case, or you're high risk, or you just want to get tested, well, gosh darn it, we want you to call the number to make an appointment to get tested going forward. So that's going to be the plan for next week, and we plan to continue testing through the month of June. So we hit our goal, we hit our mark, and we're just going to keep on testing. The second priority is contact tracing, as I mentioned. We got about 30 people from our health department, and including some volunteers who have been well trained, and we're doing case investigation, positive case interviews, where we ask everyone, okay, who have you been in contact with the last 14 days for a prolonged period of time, as defined by more than 15 minutes at a shot? Who have those contacts been, so that we can contact them and make sure that they don't have symptoms, make sure that they're self-quarantining at home if they do, and just, keeping in touch with them. So it's about 300 people a day that we're monitoring, whether it's a case investigation prior or a close contact. So that is ongoing with our team. The third priority, everyone, is the nursing homes and long-term care facilities. About 3 weeks ago, our health department, along with nursing strike teams from around the country, we've had 3 in our community, and these are teams of 5 nurses who are in each team who are infection prevention specialists. They, along with our staff, we have had face-to-face interviews and assessments with all 71 nursing homes, long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, group homes for the developmentally disabled, the many, many small mom and pop adult homes that we have in Flagler. We've been in touch with everyone to make sure that they know what to do, that they know what signs and symptoms to look for their staff and for their residents that they're caring for, to make sure they have enough PPE supplies. And that has been an issue, and we've been able to address it. And just to make sure they know what to do in case they suspect that someone, has COVID-19. Also, we have offered to test every single facility. And although we had a little bit of some issues with Grand Oaks last week, they have since relented. And so every nursing home and long-term care facility as of today is on board for getting all their residents and staff tested. So last Friday, Flagler Health and Rehab, the nursing home in Bunnell, and the Market Street Memory Care Facility on the Parkway in Palm Coast, all of those residents and staff members were tested. And I am very pleased to report that there were no positives. Everyone was negative for COVID-19. We are going to be testing 5 more facilities on Tuesday, May 19th, and that includes Grand Oaks, Tuscan Gardens, Windsor, Princeton Village and Brookdale, and then Sable Palms will be the week after. So we're all set up with IMT teams. These are incident management teams with supervision from our staff. These are teams of 8 people, paramedics, nurses, and National Guardsmen from around the country who have been testing now in the state of Florida, our nursing home facilities for the last 5 weeks. So they'll be in our community to test those 5 facilities. Let's see, what else? Gosh, everyone, I think that's about it. So I just want to tell you that we're more concerned more than ever about our nursing homes and LTCs because the two most vulnerable groups, right, are healthcare workers and our senior citizens with underlying conditions. So guess where they congregate? In those facilities. So that's why those are priority. I think that's the end of my report.
Wow, that was quite a report. I have 2 questions. When the National Guard shows up at these long-term care facilities, are they in uniform?
No, they're not. No,
Good.
they are
I can
totally gowned up. They're gowned up with face masks and surgical masks, gowns and gloves.
Because I can imagine some of those people being really scared if a soldier shows up in the room.
Right now. Yeah, they're all dressed up in
Good.
PPE.
Good. And you mentioned about looking into the racial disparities. Have you found any?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we are watching that very closely. None seems to be glaring right now, but I forgot to mention that next week we have an initiative that is major, and it's being led by our health department, and that is the homeless. Homeless folks can be carriers of COVID-19 unwittingly. And so, with proper guidance and testing, we're going to be going out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday and Saturday of next week because we've been doing hepatitis A vaccinations, and the homeless are among the 3 major risk groups for that. So we have a relationship with our homeless community. And so we're going to be going to Santa Maria del Mar, United Methodist Church, the Manel Food Pantry, Sheltering Tree, Church on the Rock, more than once. And we're going to be testing the homeless.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Does anybody else
You're
have
welcome.
I just had one question. When you visit the homeless like that and you're testing them, is there an opportunity to provide them with, hand sanitizers or anything like that, considering the fact that most of them don't have access to washing facilities and that kind of thing?
You are spot on, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing. We got it all. We got goodie bags filled with stuff that they could use.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's great. Anybody else have anything they want to ask of Bob or make a comment?
Jay, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Hey, Bob, listen, something I heard like primary cares, which are considered one of the first lines of defense until they actually make a determination, they just come in because they're sick. Is there anything they can do to get masks? Because they have a lot of people that are coming into doctor's offices, they don't have masks. So they can actually give those individuals masks or things like that. I'm not asking that you supply them. I'm just wondering if there's a resource out there. Let's face it, primary cares, people come in because they just have a sniffle, cold, and they're the ones that have to make a determination that it could be more than that. So my question
Right,
is,
Larry.
because they're, from the medical standpoint, your side of the fence, what are we looking at to ensure the primary cares before it ever goes any further than that, to make sure they have the tools they need just to make sure they're safe, first of all? Because I want my primary doctor to stay upright because I need him. he or she. So
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Hey, Larry, guess what? I'm with you, man. So listen, if a primary care physician on their own cannot get a hold of the masks and gloves and PPE that they need, I am going to, all they need to do is just call the health department and I'll make sure they get the PPE. We can put in a mission for that, Larry, as you know, through emergency management at the EOC. Plus, you know, we have supplies too that we can lend out if someone is in desperate straits. So yes, as a matter of fact, I'll ask our FE nurse to do a blast fax out to all the primary care offices to let them know that if they run into difficulty, to please call the health department because we can help.
And by the way, Bob, listen, just to let you know, I don't know if you've known about it, but we're doing a thing tomorrow at the hospital at 10:45 to 11, just to actually do a thank you to Advent Healthcare. I'd love for you to attend.
You bet.
Have the availability.
Oh, you bet, Larry. Yep. You know, and you know, we feel like the staff members at the hospital, at our nursing homes and long-term care facilities, and at the health department, these truly, gang, these are the unsung heroes. And I know you know that. They are working long, long hours. They are putting themselves at risk. But I tell you, without complaint, I am just so amazed at, you know, what we do and how we respond to disasters. You know, we opened up the special needs shelter right at the high school during the hurricanes. And so they're still blowing me away every day with respect to their dedication, their focus, and their determination to do the right thing in our response to COVID-19. So thank you all for your proclamation today. That was wonderful. You guys are awesome.
And by the way, Bob, listen, I can't thank you enough. You work with Matt and you work with Bobby, which are considered my left hand and my right hand. So I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome, man. They're awesome.
You know, based on what was discussed today between you and Matt, or was it yesterday? I forget. But about the boardwalk and all that. But you know, we don't make a move unless you give us guidance. You know that.
Oh, thank you so much, Larry, and thank you, commissioners and mayor, because you know we're in this thing together. I still, it hasn't struck me. I need to pinch myself a few times to say, holy crow, we're dealing with a response to a pandemic affecting billions and billions of people. So we are in this as a planet. We truly are.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that, you know, we still got to deal with this thing until a vaccine comes along. But you know something? We're listening to each other and we're doing it together and we're making good decisions. So thank you for allowing the data and for public health to kind of lead the way here. We appreciate it so much from Flagler Beach. Thank you all. We appreciate you a lot.
Well, Bob, you know, if everybody's doing what we're doing, we should be able to take care of this.
You bet.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, if everybody's working together like Flagler is working together, we should be able to put this bad boy to rest.
We're going to do it.
Bob, thank you so much.
You're welcome, everyone.
Okay. Penny, were there any public comments on anything that is not on the?
Yes, ma'am. Item 6 had a comment from Robbie Robert. He was asking about the opening of the pier and boardwalk, and I sent him the public service announcement that went out today. And in addition, he had questions about using the library repavement next to the pavilion as dedicated golf cart and bicycle parking.
Is that the only one?
That's the only one for just general public comment.
Right, yeah. No, I know there were lots of others. Larry, could you look into that about the golf cart parking behind the library?
Well, absolutely. There's so many spaces back there. We didn't feel the need to actually do a designation. As we progress in the future, you know, I've never seen the parking lot full. And a golf cart can park in a regular parking place. That's not illegal.
No, I know, but
But I mean, so here's the way I look at it. And by all means, anybody can tell me I'm wrong. As long as we have plenty of parking and golf carts can park, I don't see the need at this point in time for designation.
okay.
But if it becomes an issue, I'll be the first one to actually go in and restripe it for designation golf cart parking.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Thank you. All right, and if that was the only public comment, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has been amended to not include the minutes of the regular meeting of April 23rd. So it's only the minutes of the 2 workshop meetings of April 16th and 30th. Does anybody have any questions or comments on either of those? Ken?
Yeah, the only thing that I saw in the minutes from the workshop last week was it didn't include the fact that the board gave direction to install temporary parking directional signs for the parking lots.
And you're saying that's not in the minutes, or what do you, I'm not sure what you're saying.
I didn't see anything that was included in the minutes to reflect that.
Okay.
But we did do it.
I know you did.
Just to verify, we did do that.
I just thought it would be appropriate to have them in the minutes just so that we.
Okay. And Penny, can you take care of that?
That would have been the week prior. We're approving the week prior, aren't we not?
There's April 16th and 30th.
Yeah, not our last workshop, but 2 workshops ago.
Yeah,
No, I thought it was last week.
it was last week.
Yeah, because, yeah.
So those minutes have yet to come yet.
No.
I'm sorry?
And April 30th.
But didn't we have one last week? On 11th?
Yes.
We did have one last week, and you are correct, Rick. No, I have not done those minutes yet, so that's why you didn't see that. We had one on May 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
7th.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be on our next workshop.
Ah,
minutes.
okay,
My correction, sorry. Thank you, Rick.
okay. Anything else?
Motion
right.
to approve the consent agenda. Minus the regular meeting minutes of April 23rd.
Okay, second, somebody?
I'll second.
All right, I think Ken said it first.
He did. I'm just catching it. Commissioner Cooley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Mr. Bellhumor,
Yes.
Chair Mealy.
Yes. All right, now we have the PAR board. I know that we heard from Marshall Shoup that he would not be with us tonight. But I don't know, are the others all?
I'm looking right now, and I
Okay.
gave Carlos a list of names, so he's probably popping them in. I see Catherine Find is waiting. Carlos, if you could pop her in.
Okay. Getting Catherine. Okay.
Paul Harrington is waiting. He can come in.
Paul Harrington. Yep.
Paul Chestnut, he's waiting.
Who is?
Paul Chestnut.
Okay.
Got a lot of calls.
Yeah.
There's one other phone number. I don't know who that is.
There's a phone. I'm not seeing a phone number.
There were 2. That one phone number dropped.
Okay.
That's the only ones I'm seeing for PAR board.
All right, so we don't have Paul Dries and we don't have Joe Pizzoli.
And you don't have Scott.
Well, Scott Price, I thought we.
No, I emailed you about him. That he said he resided within the city. He's staying above the 705 North Ocean Shore. I emailed you about that today.
Okay.
So he is still on the list. Paul Chestnut, Paul Dries, Catherine Fine, Paul Harrington, Scott Price, Joseph Pizzuli, and Marshall Shoup. Like you said, Mr. Shoup said he'd not be able to attend the meeting tonight. Catherine is online. Paul Harrington is online. And who else did we say? I'm sorry.
Paul Chestnut.
Paul Chestnut. Is he online? Yep, he is. I see it.
I'm here.
All right. So of those three, y'all are welcome to interview.
Okay. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. Paul Chestnut, I'm going to use your last names because we got 3 Pauls on here.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
So tell us about you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me tonight. I'm a current member of the Flagler Beach Planning Architectural Review Board. Been 3 years now. That went by really quick. I've learned a lot, and I thank most of you for getting me to that point, and I would love to serve another 3 years. I've got a lot invested in Flagler Beach, as you all well know, and really passionate about this city and this town, and again, would love that opportunity to do that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, but I want to thank each and every one of you guys for the past few months. I know they've been tough, and I know you guys are under a lot of criticism with social media and just, you know, all the information that changes within the hour and day to day, from Larry to Chief Downey, Chief Pace to Flagler Beach City Commissioners. Thank you so much. Mayor Linda P, thank you guys. And I just hope that I have another opportunity to continue on with the park board. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Kathy, can you hear?
She's muted. Unmute yourself, Kathy. In the top right corner of your picture of yourself, there's a button that should say mute and unmute.
Here, I think I could do Catherine Find.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, there you go, Kathy.
Okay, there you
Oh,
are.
you are out. Did you unmute me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I guess you've all read my application and you know me. And I would like to continue for 3 more years. I do check the ordinances, and I want to make sure that, you know, they're followed. I've lived here for almost, gosh, 30 years and have been involved in, you know, other things. The museum, still a member, was the treasurer and on the board, no longer, was with the Scenic Highway as their secretary. Again, no longer. I don't know, do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions to ask Kathy? Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Okay.
Paul Harrington, you want to tell us about you?
Can you hear me this time?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and my application. As most of you know, I've been involved in the city for a long time. I've been to just about every PAR board meeting, every economic development meeting, and I watch what's going on. We're out here on an island that's between a sand marsh and sand dunes. We need to take that into consideration. We need to start looking at our planning in an island sense instead of an urban sense. My experience in land development and construction and an understanding of the wetland buffer and dune structure brings experience to the PAR board that would assist accomplishing our objectives. I think I'd be a good member on the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. All right, so Scott Price is not with us?
I'm gonna look. Let me look again real quick.
Yeah, I'm double checking also. I don't see anything on the list.
Yeah, my touch screen is not being touch sensitive. No, I'm not seeing anyone else in there for this item.
Okay. So Joe Pazzuli's not here either, and Marshall had said he wouldn't.
Correct.
Okay. So we are indeed voting on all 7 of them.
You are,
I'm sorry, Penny, go ahead.
you are voting 1 through 7, 1 being the one you're, most likely choosing for the seat. So if you guys can fill those out and email them in to me, either take a picture with your phone and email it to me, or however, and I'll collect the information and let you know later on in the meeting. I'll have Janelle double check my math. She's here.
Penny, got a question for you.
Sure.
This might be a repeat, but are we writing in Paul Chestnut's info in the bottom of the sheet there? Because his name is not on mine.
And emailed you another form on May 13th. So if you'll look in your email, I did send you another one, and he's at the top of the list because they're in alphabetical order. But if you want to write him in at the bottom and still, as long as you vote 1 through 7, that's fine with me.
I am just going to send you an email from my email.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Penny, would you like me to drop those folks back down to attendee or?
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
Mine's on its way, Penny.
Thank you.
Mine too, Penny.
Okay, I'm just waiting for him to roll in. Hey, I just got an email. I've got $1 million in Africa waiting for me. I'm rich.
But you can't get on a plane now, Penny.
Yeah. I'm like that hee-haw. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. There.
You got a rowboat if you want to get it.
Penny, did you get mine?
I have about 4 of them. I have Rick's. I have Ken's. I have Linda's. And I have Debbie's. And yes, I have yours, Jane. Yes.
Okay, good.
Missing one more. Who am I missing?
Eric.
Eric, yeah.
Working on it.
Okay.
I need to remember to cue up the Jeopardy music.
Jane, you can move on. I mean, because I'm not going to respond to this till later on. So if you want to go on and let Larry
Okay,
talk.
fine. So we're up to number 9. And Mr. Newsom, this is yours. Transmittal of a letter to the county about the WIC line into local.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I know this has been a discussion for quite some time. I think we're at a point now where it's time to move forward. Is what I'm asking the board to do is approve this office, city manager's office, to send a transmitted letter to the county dissolving the existing interlocal agreement that actually exists with the senior center, community center, whatever is the appropriate name to use, and basically dissolve that agreement that's been on the books for quite some time.
Requesting the county to agree to the dissolution is what you mean, right, Larry?
Right, and by all means. I do depend on the city attorney to help me through this, but because I know what the end game is. The end game is to go ahead and dissolve the existing interlocal agreement. And then at a future time, we come back with an interlocal use agreement. And Drew, if you don't mind, can you offer clarity to the board on why it's still called an interlocal, but not
It's
an
between two
interlocal agreement?
agencies. I mean, we can call it an interlocal use agreement. We can call it whatever we want, but really the name is just the name. The agreement is dictated by its terms. I will, even when I'm trying not to, I will typically on things like this use the intergovernmental language because it is an intergovernmental agreement. Whether it's a use agreement, whether it's a lease, whatever it is, when it's intergovernmental, we tend to put that moniker of intergovernmental on it.
Which means at the end of the day, the city takes control of the building, but we go through a use agreement with the county, which at this point in time, based on the uses of the building, I don't see any changes that we're going to have with the county, all the way from maintenance to anything else, because the county typically uses the building 5 days a week right now for senior services, which exists anywhere from 9 o'clock to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We don't see a reason to change that at this point in time, but it now goes from an interlocal agreement, which it means that in the past, the county controlled the use of the building, to where now it shifts over and the city controls the use of the building. But through a use agreement, we still allow the county to use the building. Am I correct, Drew?
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, then after the fact, once that happens, then we'll come back with that use agreement, and we'll basically go through the county and okay, we'll actually sign them up as a user of the building, not as a manager of the building. Drew, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think you covered it on that one. I don't know where, I think most of you were on the board when we went through this the last time with the county, and we had what amounted to a use agreement with the county before that Mr. Hadid and I had worked out. So we may be reverting to some parts of that. I know that had maybe more detail than everybody will be looking for going forward. But I think there is a framework that still exists out there that the county attorney and I had worked out previously.
Okay.
So in essence, what it does, it does put the control of the building back under the county.
Under the city.
Excuse me.
All right.
Chair, I have a question.
Okay, I think Rick was first, then Eric, then Debbie.
Okay, I'm unmuted, right? Okay. We've been talking about this for about 2 years now. And I believe the last time we approached the county, whatever Larry sent, they disagreed with. So we've been in a stall ever since then. So I don't know what are the ramifications of approving something we don't know it is. I mean, Larry's telling us what it's going to say, but to some degree, but I mean, Larry, you're saying that we're going to just cut all ties with the county and then we'll invite them in on a user basis.
Right, and I don't see the existing language from the existing interlocal changing, but what it does, it changes who actually is owner or manager of the property, of our property. It puts us back in charge of it.
You done, Rick?
I guess I mean, I just, I'm confused. Just seems like the cart's before the horse here. I don't know. Hopefully they're okay with it. I mean, there's still always that chance that they could say no, correct?
Well, the question's going to be, and Drew, this is a question for you. Let's just say we process number 9. We send a transmittal letter to the county saying we're going to dissolve the interlocal and the county will take over.
City.
The city.
Excuse me. I don't know why I keep on saying county. I should be over that by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, all we're doing is saying that we're going to dissolve the existing interlocal agreement.
Well, again, we're asking the county to agree because we cannot unilaterally dissolve.
Correct. That's my point. It could always come back rejected again like it did last time.
I guess where I'm confused, Commissioner, is, and maybe I'm asleep at the wheel, but under the past administration, so there was actually a letter that said that they don't agree with dissolving the interlocal agreement.
That's how I remember it. Correct.
Drew?
Does that sound?
Rick, I don't remember that. And I will say, because Al and I worked so hard on the last update, so there may be pushback, there could be pushback on the dissolution. They may want to have an agreement in place, which is that may be what you're referring to, because that's how Al and I ended up working together the last go around, is they wanted to have something to fall back into rather than having any potential gap period where they didn't have any identifiable, on paper rights to continue the use.
Okay, I'm not trying to put a hiccup in this thing necessarily. I'm just wondering about the procedures and, one step after the other. That's all.
I'm looking at the 08 one, and it says amendments to and waivers of the provisions of this agreement shall be made by the parties only in writing and must be agreed to by both parties jointly. This agreement shall continue in effect unless both parties are in agreement to terminate it.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So just for clarity, Larry, all this letter is going to say is we want to terminate the current agreement. It's not going to go into who can use the building when and all that.
Not yet, no.
Okay. So Rick, are you okay now? You're muted. Okay.
For the time being. Thank you.
Okay. I think Eric, you were next.
Well, a lot of this is a spin-off of kind of what y'all have been talking about, and Rick brought up. I guess I'm confused. I thought we just did this just a little while ago, and it has been ignored by the county, because we've sent at least one, and I thought multiple letters to county, and have asked for answers on this multiple times. And I guess my question is, how is this different?
Are you asking me, Eric?
Buddy.
Yes, sir.
I think we're actually putting something in writing to go in front of their board. I don't think we've ever had anything in writing that goes in front of their board that says, we want to terminate the interlocal agreement. And like, again, if I'm asleep at the wheel, but I don't recall anything since I've been here for 4.5 years that's actually been sent to make that official request to dissolve.
You haven't put it in a letter, and just kind of going through the history, and what was it, 2 years ago, I want to say, when we did the first proposed interlocal or terminating the old interlocal, entering a new interlocal agreement that was focused on the use of the building. That went to the county administrator at the time, and maybe this was 3 years ago. Went to the county administrator at the time, went to the county attorney's office. There was significant pushback to that. That's the point at which Al and I began working together. crafted the second that came several months after that one forward to you and was sent at least to the county administrator, received that. That one had administrative support, but then the county administrator changed. So I think that probably has more to do with that than anything. And now you have a different administration than you had at the time that the last time we were discussing this. And I think Larry has had positive conversations with the new administrator on this topic, which I believe is why it's circling back again. Did I misstate that, Larry?
Not at all. But if you recall, if I may refresh the board's memory, you know, even Mr. Coffey stood up and said, "Hey, we'll do whatever you want to do." And,
Yeah,
but
I remember that, Larry. You did say that, but then it got stalled there anyway. So this transmittal letter is going to the staff, to the attorney, or to the commissioners?
This transmittal letter will be going to the administrator, and the administrator has to put it on the agenda.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Sorry to butt in.
Okay, Eric, are you done?
Yes, I'm done. If I was to add anything to that, I would say that I think we should consider adding a time. If there is no response, we'll just say, you know, if there is no response by X amount of time, then we'll consider that compliance or whatever. And, you know, some type of verbiage in there where we're not going to be stuck for over 2 years of being on hold.
What you're looking for, Commissioner, is basically a finite point where, and Drew, you can answer to this, because I think that's a very good suggestion, Commissioner, to where, listen.
Does not trump the language that the chair read, which is any termination has to be in writing. I mean, this is, and it's, we've talked about it before, that original agreement that we had with the county, it's set in place. There is no termination for convenience. There is no one party deciding this agreement is over.
Well, but you did say that your discussions with Jerry Cameron have been good, so maybe it will just move on.
Well, first of all, going to the next step is not going to change at this point in time. The only thing that's going to change is we go into a use agreement, which means nothing will change on how the senior center or community center is being used, but they have to actually fill out a use agreement. And we don't have to have the bureaucratic process of a true interlocal agreement, which is what we're talking about right now. You throw the existing interlocal agreement out the window per se, then we go to a use agreement, which will have better language in it. It says at any point in time, the city, let's just say, let me give you an example. Say we decide to turn that center into a youth center. Then the use agreement that has yet to be written will say you have this many days to find an alternative location. And so they still will have use of the building as it exists. But if we as a city come up with a use that we feel is better for the building, then we will write the language into the future use agreement that says, you know, we have to use it for these hours. And if they still say, okay, can we use it for these hours? What we're trying to do is put the county in the same classification, even though it's a governmental entity, the same classification that anybody else that may want to use that building. We just have to call it an interlocal use agreement, as Drew so well explained to me. It's an interlocal use agreement only because it's still an agreement, but it's not an interlocal agreement. It's a different type of agreement between two government entities. But it doesn't have all the restrictions that the existing interlocal agreement has. So we actually own and direct, we still have to follow professional protocol. If we decide that we want to do something else with the building, let them know that, okay, your use agreement, county, that you have 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to seek alternatives. And I'll be the first one to say it. Jerry and I have had conversations. At the end of the day, this services that they're providing, which is a great service, should be over at Palm Coast anyway. But I'm not trying to press that fact at this point in time. I'm just trying to make sure that by doing an interlocal use agreement, I don't see an interruption in service at this point in time until you, as a city commission, say, we've got a better plan for this building. We want to make it a youth center during the summertime. We want to do this. At that point in time, under the interlocal use agreement with the county, we send them a letter saying, per interlocal use agreement, we expect to implement this program within the next so many days. It's reasonable for them to look for an alternative location. But we can do it now under a interlocal use agreement, which is much easier instead of using the existing interlocal agreement. So is everybody confused?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Are you done, Eric?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Debbie?
Actually, Commissioner Bellhumor and Cooley asked the questions that I was going to ask, so I'm good.
Okay. Ken?
Yeah, I just want to know, I mean, so in all practical purposes, the maintenance of the building and these kinds of things here doesn't change at all.
No, sir.
Okay.
They still use it. For the time they use it, they're still going to be in charge of the maintenance. I mean, they're using it pretty much. If I had to guess percentages, they're using it pretty much 85% of the time. They're using it 5 days a week. Saturday's the only pretty much open day. And then the church uses it on Sunday. That's the only time that the church is using it, which we'll actually hit on the next agenda item. So the short and long of it is the maintenance. Now, as we change, we have a maintenance, we have janitorial services and all that. So if things change, we are prepared to take over the building and maintain the janitorial services.
Okay.
Rick?
Larry, we're gonna continue to give them exclusive use of the kitchen and the offices in there. We're gonna still separate them for the county. I know they're used to having exclusive use of that, so.
At this point in time, yes.
Okay.
All right, well, we can discuss all those things when we actually get into the user agreement, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I know way back when we first started having these discussions, it was a frustration on some of our parts that we don't get to use the building as much as we might want to. Now, right this minute, do I have an idea of what I might want to do with the building? No. But we have that building there, and we have had for a long time places for people to meet. We need that when people can meet again. And if the senior center takes if the feeding people takes as long as it does, we're really not gaining anything. The church is there on Sunday, so it leaves us from like 5 o'clock at night till whenever at night.
And Saturday.
And Saturday. So that's not going to change but if we want to, we can change it.
Right. The key thing, the end game is the city now becomes basically back in charge of the building. So whatever we do in the future is we have every right, or you have every right as a board. And I, as a city manager, we go to them and let them know, listen, guys, you can't have all this time. We got to use some of it. But it gives us a right to do that, unlike the existing interlocal agreement.
Okay. And then we could use the kitchen if we want to, or whatever in there.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So any other questions, comments? Nobody? Okay. So we can't approve a letter we haven't seen. So what is it we're actually doing here?
I think what's being asked for is consent consent for the staff to send the county administration a letter requesting that the existing interlocal be terminated and replaced with the new use agreement.
Okay. So do we actually need a motion, or can it just be consensus, Drew?
Consensus is fine with me unless you want a motion, Larry.
Whatever makes the board feel comfortable.
Do you think a motion would give you any more leverage with the county?
Yep. Always.
It is.
I'll make that motion that we give Larry direction to create that letter and send it to the county.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Debbie, I think.
We overlapped, that's okay.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Bellhumor,
Yeah.
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Chair Haley.
Yes. All right, now we go on to the,
Comment on that.
I'm
item.
sorry.
There was no public comment on that item. Just
Oh,
if
I'm
you were.
sorry.
And
Sorry.
also I have notes of your par board appointments. After adding everything up, your appointments for the next 3-year terms will be Paul Chestnut, Catherine Find, and Joe Pizzuli.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Now, Larry, before we actually start discussing this agreement with the Salty Church, if we have not taken over the building yet, how is it that we're doing this agreement?
It will have to be contingent upon the results of our interaction with the county on the item you just discussed.
Okay.
So any motion you make, if you were to make a motion to approve, it should be contingent upon us receiving permission from the county to do so. And that could take a couple of forms. It could either be in the form of, yeah, the county says, okay, we agree to terminate the interlocal agreement, then it's easy. But I would also suggest that in whatever letter goes to the county on the prior motion, we also include in there that we would like to go ahead and enter this agreement with Salty Church, because currently they are using the building, I believe. They're using it through an agreement with the county. And I also think that if I remember the dates right, that will be expiring not super soon, but in the relative near term. And so for the convenience of everybody, I would hope the county would at least say, give us the written approval to enter the agreement with Salty, in which case it covers it that way, even if there is more discussion to come on the termination of the existing interlocal. But any motion you make on this, if you move to approve, it should be contingent upon us having appropriate authority from the county to enter this agreement with Salty.
Okay.
Carlos, could you pot up Dennis Bear and Travis Polly out of the list of people waiting?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just the two. There we go.
And you may want to unmute Dennis and can't see Travis as well.
Hi.
Let's see if I can.
Hi there.
Perfect. Let's unmute Dennis.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, we can hear you both now.
Good evening.
Hi. Drew, who should start this?
Larry, do you want to go? I mean, I drafted the agreement, but I wouldn't have, other than discussing with Dennis, I haven't had any conversations about the meat of it.
Well, let me start it this way. First of all, my goal was to look at, in the Salty Church, we talked, Travis and I have talked in great detail way before this point in time, to where as users of the building at no fee, that, and truly the church was more than welcome to step up to the plate. That, outside of what they've done on the inside of the building, Travis and his organization, his church, said, Larry, we'll be happy to paint the building, fix the doors, numerous things of the needed improvements that would take the final building on the WIC line and bring it up to more of a visual, but also take care of a lot of the issues with with that church and also the walkway itself. So in conversations is that the Salty Church said, we'll take care of this, Larry. We just need something from the city that says at the end of the day, we could actually have some type of public-private partnership. And who else a better partner than the Salty Church? And they're just looking for a public-private partnership, which I see by any means is that the city looks at it as a 5-year public-private partnership to where the church doesn't have to pay any dollars, and they take care of the building. And they were more than happy to do that. But that's what created this agenda item, is they just need buy-in from our board. Dennis, do you want to add to that, or Travis?
No, I think that's correct. I mean, Salty's been there for a while and they've been doing some improvements to the building, and they'd like to have some kind of, they're more than willing to continue to make improvements towards the painting and the electronics and things of that sort, but they want to have some kind of security. They can stay in the building for that period of time. So that's why we've tried to carve out those periods of time that are not in conflict and within timeframes that other users may want to have the building. So this is really a byproduct of conversations that Larry has had with Travis, and Drew and I were trying to put that into the framework of an agreement.
Okay, Travis, do you want to add anything?
No, we're just grateful to be there, and we just see it as part of our responsibility to help, improve it the best we can, and just to continue to use that as an opportunity to be of value to the community. So,
As you always are.
thank you guys. Thank you very much.
And I know you have spoken with Chris Conklin, and he's given an estimate of what the cost will be.
Correct.
Yes.
Chris is ready to go. He's ready to get started on it.
Yeah, okay.
He would start tomorrow.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of anybody who spoke? Rick? Yeah, okay.
All right. I know they've been doing something in there. I don't know what that is. Salty Church, that is. Larry clued me in a little bit about some speakers or some changes inside there. I'm just wondering, so Larry, you said something about them continuing to do things. Does that mean that they're going to do things beyond the painting of the building, or is that the end result of what they're going to do?
Well, based on what we're looking at right now is the painting, facade, things like that. That's what they're going to do. But if there's other things that need to be done, changing out the doors, things like that. But if there's other things that need to be done, it may require us to come back and amend. But I don't have any concerns. I mean, if there's other things that, like I said, there's other things that need to be done to the building. But the other thing too is they're going to maintain the outside of the building. So at this point in time, to answer to your question, Commissioner, is this is the main things we saw that needed to be done. If there's other things that need to be done, what we'll do is we'll work with the Salty Church under that public-private partnership.
Okay. The only reason
to that response, if I may, under the draft you have in front of you, they can do more. If they're going to make modifications to the building, we would have to authorize that in writing. So that's just a letter type authorization. So they can do more, but what they have to do is what's included in that agreement.
Yeah, what Drew is saying, Commissioner, is say the Salty Church says, okay, I want to expand the building, or I'd like to add a second floor, things like that. That would have to come back in front of you.
Of course, being on the board, I'm quite aware of that sort of scenario. I do remember us talking about at one point even tearing that breezeway down because of its structural integrity. Does that need any work at this point?
That's,
Before we,
yeah, that's part of what's under the Salty Church. Look, as you know, we went in and pressure washed everything. There is going to be some wood that needs to be changed, but believe it or not, and truly, I'm not a contractor, Rick, you know more about this than I do. But overall, once you get below the paint, the breezeway was not as bad as we thought.
yeah, I saw that. As far as the wood goes, my concern was the masonry. That there were some, some pretty severe cracks in the block work. But that was something we were going to try and patch up before it got painted.
Yeah, that's going to be part of that. I mean, you can't. And Travis or Dennis, you could always jump in, but we're not just saying they can go out there and slap a coat of paint on it and call it a day. They have to actually take care of a lot of things. And I've walked the site numerous times with their contractors. So there's repairs that have to be done before they start slapping paint down.
So we agree. Yeah, if there's wood rot or rust or whatever needs to be done, we'll take care of that before we put the paint back over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The estimate that we have here from Chris Conklin goes into those details. It also has a nice paint splash on it, which I think is a nice touch.
Yeah, Jane, but it didn't say anything about the structural integrity of the breezeway. And at one point, somebody, or building official or somebody, was talking about tearing it down because of its
yeah, no, I know that.
So I just want to make sure that I think it's part of the complex that I'm happy that it's staying, but I'd like to make sure that it's it's structurally sound going forward.
Well, keep in mind, Rick McFadden has to sign off on it, and he's been out there with the contractor or contractors, and what we're talking about on this doesn't waive them having to go through our building official.
Understood.
Which Chris and Rick have a great relationship.
Okay. Anybody
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay, Debbie.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question for Travis. Travis, you use the building on Sundays, we know. Do you anticipate a greater need to have the building throughout the week in the future?
So in our agreement with the county, it started off with Sundays. We started with 2 services. Our congregation continued to grow, so we moved to a noon service. We got that approved through them. And then we went to Wednesday nights just from like the beginning of the end of, like February through June. We would meet there for small groups for an hour and a half. And then we'd start back up in the fall again, and we'd go back through January, and cycle that on Wednesdays. And then we started, and I know Eric Cooley knows this because we've talked about it, Commissioner Cooley, excuse me. And we've talked about it. Our youth meet there every other week from fall until summer as well. That hasn't been happening lately, obviously, with everything going on. All these meetings have stopped, but we have asked in the agreement if we could take that. We had quite a bit of youth starting to come, even youth from the community that don't attend our church, to our youth nights are called Stand Student Ministry. And it's just an opportunity for kids to congregate in a positive environment, to get support, have some fun, and just leave with that positive reinforcement. So we would like to do that on Tuesdays from 6:30 until 8. We asked for 6 until 8:30 just for setup and cleanup. The same thing on Wednesday nights during those timeframes, not in the summer, would be the same time frame. So we did ask for that expansion of time, if possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I have one more question, Jane.
Well, wait a minute, Eric wants to. Eric?
Just real quick, for those of you that are familiar with Travis and Salty, anytime that they interact with the city, we always have great interactions, and he's an excellent custodian of anything that he touches, and Salty Church does quite a bit. So I have no doubt that this will work out in the city's favor tremendously.
Thank you.
Agreed. Rick?
Let's see, on 1, 2, 3rd whereas, it says something about using the foyer. I'm not I just want to make sure I have a full understanding of what that means. They talking about the entry into the front of the building, that foyer where the building department is?
That's actually in the former school building. So that's in the other building that we have an agreement with Salty Church on. What we're doing also with this agreement is rolling into this one, the existing, so that we can have one agreement with Salty and not have two agreements with the same entity for what is essentially the same property, but it is a different building on the site.
Yes, so
Yeah,
that is.
Go ahead, Travis.
I just wanted to answer your question, Commissioner. Yeah, that is the foyer in what is currently the building department. When improvements began in that facility, remodeling, we went outside with a tent, as most of you know, and started with our kids out there, our pre-K and our babies. Rick was kind enough to offer, and Larry, for us to use the foyer if we installed a security door to protect the business office from that foyer so that we wouldn't have access to that. And we, of course, agreed to do that. I believe it was about $2,600 for that door. We installed it that way the building department can lock us out of that area. And that created a safe place for our youngest kids. And we were able to provide that security for them. So we were just asking if, since we installed that and it doesn't have any impact on the business office, if we were allowed to expand that area for our kids along with the 2 rooms that we currently have an agreement with.
I have no issue with that whatsoever, Travis. I was just thinking about the fact that it's a wide open counter at this point in time. So, and we were putting the other doorway in the hallway to keep people from getting access to that area. So it's, if you guys are putting a gate up over that counter, then I have no issues with it.
It's already done.
Okay.
Well, they don't let us in there anymore.
You need the magic password. Anybody else? Okay, Dennis, you have any more you want to say? Travis?
Travis doesn't really need me. He's his own best spokesperson, so I'm just here to answer any questions.
Okay. So I guess I need a motion to approve the user agreement for the public-private partnership between Salty Church and the city for the use of the senior center.
Contingent upon authorization from the county to enter this as to the Wickline Center.
We understand.
I was just going to say that, Drew. So I'll make that motion that we approve a use agreement with Salty Church, contingent on the full release from the county of the existing interlocal. Do it, Drew?
Can I stop and ask for a modification of that? And I use that contingent upon authorization from the county, because even if the county wants to take more time on the termination of the interlocal, all they have to do is put it in writing that we're authorized to enter this agreement with Salty Church, and we can do it even if that interlocal is still in place. So being a little bit more open-ended on the county part and just leaving it at authorization from the county to enter this agreement.
Got that, Penny?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there a second to all of that?
Second.
Debbie?
All right. Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Bellhumor,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes to the motion?
Chair Mealy,
Yes.
and there were no public comments submitted for that item.
Okay, I was just gonna, I remembered this time.
While before Dennis leaves the panel, Dennis, I'll put a call into Al and let him know what's coming. And if you happen to be talking to Al, you might mention it too, that Salty would really like to get this done, and that may help speed it along on getting whatever may help on both 9 and this one. But I think it'll definitely help us get something so we can move forward on this.
Yeah, I'll send him an email tomorrow because I wanted to follow up on that issue he had earlier with the beach renourishment issue as well. So I'll definitely follow up, and I'll copy you on that email, Drew, so we're all in the same loop.
And can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
All right, I just want to make sure. So I need to tell Chris Conklin to wait to paint and do all the work until we hear back from the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard that so I can update him. He's waiting for me to call him tonight, so.
Okay, I guess we're
so much.
finished. Thank you, guys.
I just want to thank all of you for what you're doing and all the hard work you're putting in during this time. Thank you for this opportunity as well.
Welcome. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
And thanks for all you do too, Travis. All righty. Now we get to number 11, Resolution 2020-12, which is not going to be voted on, but I guess.
No, you will vote on the resolution. You may make amendments to it, but I think there are still items in the resolution that you wanted to vote on. I'll read the title.
Oh, because of the radios, right. Okay.
Resolution 2020-12, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending Resolution 2019-17, which adopted the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget to reflect a budget amendment, providing for conflict, providing an effective date hereof.
Okay, would it be bad to deal with the radios first?
Through the chair.
Drew?
My thought actually was if you want, and Kathleen, you're on, right? Yeah, Kathleen, the three items on this budget amendment that deal with the fire truck would be the first three line items, right?
I'm sorry. On the actual resolution?
Yes, on the actual resolution.
Hold on. Open that up. Sorry, I only have my agenda item open.
Yes.
Okay, so my thought was that you might gather a consensus to remove those three items from the resolution at the get-go and then focus in on what's left in the resolution. And then once that has been motioned and voted on, then if you want to move into discussion of the three items that you seem like you want to pull out, you can have that discussion at that point. But I think it might be a little bit cleaner to deal with the resolution and what you want to pass within the resolution, and then get to what's left over, discussion of what's left over.
Okay, that makes sense. So just by consensus, Drew, that's okay?
Yes, ma'am, because you'll ultimately vote on the resolution, and if you're taking line items out, the motion will include those line items that are being removed. The consensus just kind of moves you into the discussion and keeps it focused.
Okay, so do we have consensus to remove from this resolution the first three lines of section 1?
You got mine.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I see Eric nodding his head. So, okay. So we have that consensus. So can we now talk about the radios?
Okay, I'll just speak briefly to that. Back on February 13th, you guys decided to go ahead and approve the contract with the county to move forward on the radio capital lease plan that was in place. And this is basically just the housekeeping to put transfer the money that was reserved into the budget, and then also to use an additional I lost my number there, about $48,000 worth of unrestricted funds to make up the delta between what we had in reserves and what we didn't.
Okay. Bobby, do you want to talk to this at all?
No, I mean, it's clear for me. I spoke with Kathleen earlier today, so to me, like she said, it was just kind of housekeeping.
Okay, Matt, do you have anything you want to say?
No, ma'am, I was just turning my microphone down, so now that go into this office.
Okay. Because I know the radios affect you too, so.
No, Bobby's done an awesome job being a lead on the contract and all the stuff with the county, Jared and everybody, and we've got full faith in what we're moving forward with.
Okay, good. Any of the commissioners have anything they wish to ask or say?
I got a question for Pam.
Yes.
Did we have any public comment in reference to the radios?
I don't believe so. All directed to the fire.
And if you want to get to the public comment part of this, you might as well go through the fire truck ones, because even though you may make a motion that doesn't include that, that is still public comment entered on this agenda item.
Even if we're not taking any
Even if you're
action?
not, yeah, even if you're not, because you could have some public comment about the fire truck that says keep the fire truck in. So I think it's still, before you make a motion and vote on anything on this resolution, you should have the public comment first.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
well, I don't think there were any, Penny, as of right before the meeting, there weren't.
No, there are none. There's no discussion about the radios. There are 21 emails regarding the fire truck, though. 20 in opposition and 1 pro fire truck.
Okay, and if,
Were all of those by email, Penny?
All notified by email, yes. They were from Paul Allen, Art Woosley, Terry Potter, Rick Fielder, Sandra Judy, Paul Harrington, Harriet Pritchard, Randy Pritchard, Fran Moore, S. Daly, Bill Petty, Deidre Daly, Evra Mowry, Deborah Petty, Leanne Cock, Karen Joyner, Marshall Shoup, Steve Wood, Paul Ryder, Care Paget, and Mark Trammell.
And have those emails been provided to the commissioners?
Yes.
Yes, I read them all.
I responded to about 90% of them, so yes, we got them. Rick, did that take care of your concern?
Yeah, it was. I wasn't really. Drew straightened it out. I wasn't sure whether we were going to vote on this resolution now and then get into the fire trucks, but he says he wanted that done first.
Okay. All right, so nobody has any questions about the radios? We've kind of hashed them out prior. Everybody's good? So Drew, I'm still a little floundering here. What do we have to do now?
So if you were wanting to make a motion that removed the first 3 line items, it would be a motion to approve resolution 2020-12, removing line item, I won't read them out by numbers, that confuses it. Removing the first 3 line items regarding the fire truck. So you're approving the resolution, but you're approving it in an amended form. Just like we were approving an ordinance on second reading that you'd made amendments to. So it's approving it with these changes.
So everything else was just background. It's not part of the resolution. The other pages that we were provided,
Correct. What you're voting on is the resolution.
which is just the numbers.
Correct.
Okay, I got it now. Okay. I got it.
All right. Once again, I guess I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-12 minus the first 3 line items that total $570,738. One that's $263,979, and third item $306,759. So that leaves no doubt what lines we remove, correct, Drew?
You're good. Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there discussion? Okay,
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley,
Goes to the motion.
Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Bellhumor,
Yes.
Chair Mealy.
yes. Okay, now, at least it was my intent, Drew, and hopefully we can still do this, to have Bobby, Larry, whoever, make a presentation.
That was my expectation too. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So who's ready?
I'm ready, Chair. And if the board's in agreement, I do have some information to share with you. And then I would like to open it up to Kathleen for the financials. And then at that point, unless Mr. Newsom's got anything, but I did have some information to share with the board. Before I get started, I would like to thank Commissioners Phillips and Bryan for coming by the department yesterday. Staff and I appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions. So with that, you did receive some background material in your agenda packets. I'm not going to go through every one of those bullets. I am going to address some key points though back in those bullets. And I do have quite a bit of additional information I'd like to share with you. Again, when promoted to chief, I did stress and have stressed the importance of having a replacement and depreciation schedule for department equipment. NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, does state in NFPA 1901 that the fire service leaders should carefully consider the value or the risk to firefighters of keeping fire apparatus in frontline service when it's more than 15 years old. Adhering to the department's ISO rating of 3, the city must ensure that there are 2 fire engines / pumpers and 1 aerial unit within its fleet. The ISO, or the Insurance Service Office, inspected the department 2 years ago and awarded a high rating of 3. This improved rating of 3 allows for insurance savings to our local homeowners and business owners. It is imperative the current number of fire trucks remain in the fleet to provide the safest community for our local residents. I would also speak to mechanical breakdowns and the importance of having backup fire trucks. In purchasing a new fire engine, ladder 11 would still be accessible. However, preservation for this unit could be accomplished at approximately the 7-year mark. But there's been no deviation for the need of this truck. This would be evident on the recent structure fire, and this was noted by Commissioner Cooley. Research has been conducted now for over the last 6 months through 3 manufacturers, as previously stated, and that would be E1, Rosenbauer, and Pierce. And with our findings, the department has selected Pierce. The department was not completely certain on when research would be complete, but there was never a question upon completion the request for a new truck purchase would be submitted. The fire engine would be built specifically to the needs of the department with room for growth. As the fire service continues to evolve, so does the need for additional equipment. The new fire engine provides the opportunity for the department to respond with this additional equipment. You would have read in your original notes that the manufacturer would give a credit for engine 111. But the original information, we were speculating as possibly of researching a volunteer department in the Panhandle that a donation could be made in the city's name. Well, upon further review, I believe there's a unique opportunity for the city, which would be to donate the engine 111 to the Fire Academy at FPC. And this donation would be local, students would train local, and new fire recruits could work locally. Some further information, background information, is that we need to be clear on the fact that a replacement plan had to start somewhere, and this began with ladder 11. But information that has been presented to this board has always been done with complete transparency when discussing the budget or equipment replacement. Allocations have been made annually and approved by the board for the fire truck replacement the last 4 years. One of the things that was a little bit confusing in my first notes was when I first took office as chief, I did ask about the ladder truck. One of the questions posed to me at the time was how much time did I think I could get out of engine 111? And I replied that 6 to 8 years was my hopes. January, I'll be in the chief's office 8 years. So we've reached that threshold. Not to mistake the fact that the truck is 24 years old. So NFPA recommends the replacement of a fire truck every 15 years. However, this is a recommendation. The goal of the department with proper maintenance is to gain more time. We are looking more at a 15 to 20-year window for truck replacement. Again, we've exceeded that with 24 years of service with engine 111. Just to be clear, there's always been a plan in place. Continuing annual reserves, the replacement of engine 11 is scheduled for 2027. The engine 11 at that time would be 21 years old. Although we are still not within that 15 to 20-year window, we are getting closer. Finally, ladder 11 is scheduled for replacement in 2033. The ladder truck will be at 17 years at this point. To clarify, The reserves would have reached the point at 17 years to pay for the new aerial in full. But if the truck was found to still be in good, safe repair, a 20-year lifespan could be evaluated. As an example, if 20 years of service were accomplished by a new fire engine, it would equate to $28,500 a year. I did mention that we have, as a department, decided on Pierce of the 3 manufacturers that we've researched. And that was after extensive months of research meetings and hands-on pre-construction. That decision was made to move to Pierce Manufacturing and make this presentation. Pierce is presented with a 2020 Sabre, and the truck comes stocked with a tremendous amount of protection material, warranties, and new state-of-the-art life-saving equipment. In speaking to preventative measures offered by Pierce to protect the truck from our harsh environment, every piece of equipment, components, or surface were addressed. Whatever could be galvanized dipped, ordered in stainless steel, or receive a Line-X coating was incorporated into the specs. And this was all done in an effort to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. The other companies that were researched, as I mentioned, were Rosenbauer. Rosenbauer presented with the 2020 Rosenbauer Commander custom pumper. This truck came in at $582,986, and that was stocked with equipment. We did not find the information turnaround to be sufficient with Rosenbauer. It was very slow to get back with the request that we made. They were out of range to where we were trying to stay within the truck cost, and there were going to be major cutbacks made just to get to a point that we could start to have discussions. Additionally, the materials that they offered were suspect to not holding up over time. E1 also presented, and they presented with a 2020 E1 Rescue pumper on an E1 Typhoon chassis. This truck came in at $619,014, and this was not stocked. The truck was viewed as way off the spectrum from the very beginning. It was not stocked with, like I said, the life-saving equipment, and protection in the body for everything throughout was not comparable to Pierce. A little bit about Pierce Manufacturing. Pierce Manufacturing has been in service for over 105 years. They have a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility both in Bradenton and Appleton, Wisconsin. They have state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment, and they are a single source manufacturer, meaning they can completely build this apparatus bumper to bumper within their factory. Pierce is also very dedicated to their parts and service department. They have 56 customer service team members, and it's also the customers are assured of 24/7 response services. Their service centers are certified repair centers for many different vendor components. Pierce currently stocks over $1 million in spare parts related to items that needed quick and efficient response for customer needs. Pierce service also services all makes of fire and emergency vehicles. Their technicians are certified emergency vehicle technicians. The local service center for Flagler Beach would be located in Sanford, Florida. A few of the notable features on the Pierce Sabre would include 1,250 gallon per minute waterless pump, 750 gallon poly water tank, 65 gallon aluminum fuel tank, a Cummins L9 engine, and ladders on a ladder rack that are fully enclosed. Warranty timeline for the major components on the truck are as followed. The Cummins engine is 5 years. The frame and custom chassis would be a 50-year warranty. 5 years on the axle, 3 years on the ABS brakes, 10 years on the custom cab structure, 5 years on the EVS transmission, lifetime warranty on the water tank, 10 years on the structure body, 5 years on, or 6 years, excuse me, on the roll-up doors, 5 years on the pump, 10 years on all plumbing throughout the truck, and 10 years on paint and body. In closing, I wanted to address a question that I have been asked a couple of times recently. The question is, how many fire calls has the department responded to over the last few years. The reports were obtained for the last 5 years with fires totaling 211 calls. This would include structure fires, cooking fires, vehicle fires, and others. There were some significant fires over the last several months, including the fire at the Moody Boat Ramp, where this entire dock could have burned to the ground. Fire on the north end where 2 dogs were saved. In the most recent fire on South Daytona, without this ladder truck, there was a high potential to lose this entire city block. Flagler County is scheduled to be the fastest growing county within the state. The Flagler Beach Fire Department is committed to all calls for service. We are just requesting the proper and safest equipment as the city and the county continues to grow. With that, that's all I have. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, thank you, Bobby.
Yep.
Larry, did you want to add anything before I open it up to the commission?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Okay, so who wants to, Ken?
Yeah, I just have a few questions and I'll run through a few of them, Bobby, and you can answer them. I know yesterday when I was looking at the fire truck, I didn't get the information. I guess I should have asked. I know that you had indicated that the pump on the particular machine that you have now is old and sometimes can be unreliable. Approximately how much would it cost to replace a pump on 111? That's one question. The other question is, what is the areas that you cover in addition to Flagler Beach? In other words, I mean, I'm on the other side of the river here. I'm on the other side of the bridge. So I know you cover that area as well as maybe down John Anderson, but I'd be curious to know what other areas you are required to cover in addition to just the beach, because I think some folks are under the impression that you just stay right here on the island, so to speak, and take care of fires and this kind of thing here. The other one is the requirements or the skills that your staff might have, because I mean, old people like me sometimes need some help. And are you just sending out a firefighter to me, or are you sending out some guys and some gals with more skills than that? So those are the questions that I have.
Okay, the first one, Commissioner Bryan, with the pump, we need to be clear on this thing. That would involve the plumbing and the valves and the gauges, the pump packing, and all the pump transfer that we discussed with you yesterday. I do not have a price off the top of my head of what that would cost. I can tell you with everything that I've mentioned to you, very expensive. As far as where we respond on mutual aid, automatic aid throughout the county. Obviously, our main goal is to cover in and around Flagler Beach, but we work mutual aid, especially with that aerial truck. We are called upon to work in many areas around the county. So we do, and we've gone out into Volusia County. As far as training, that is one of the things that I would probably most proud about with this department. We have always been committed to pushing our folks early on because we are a small department. And I'll use a rookie as an example, and some of the commissioners have been there for a while, probably get tired of hearing this, but as they're in the door, in addition to doing their rookie books and protocols and getting acclimated to the station, they are pushed through driver engineer, aerial operator, starting FO1 class, marine rescue operator, hazmat classes. And we do this because of the size that we are. And unfortunately, what we've had in the past is we've had some turnover. We've done better in the last year for it. Folks got incentives and raises last year, which we're very appreciative for. But when we did lose people, we had to have people be able to roll up, operate equipment, be trained highly enough that they could be running this expensive equipment. And this is the way we operate.
The last question is, there were some comments that you're going to need additional staff if you got this truck. Is that correct?
That is entirely incorrect.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Rick?
Got it. Okay, Bobby, excuse me, Chief. You said that the water supply on the new truck would be how many gallons?
It's a 750 gallon tank.
And how much does 111 carry around?
Both the pumpers we have right now are 1,000 gallon tanks. However, there is no lack in credit. We're not hit by ISO if we have a less of a tank of 1,000 gallons to 750. Both of those qualify. In addition, at last count, we had just shy of 220 hydrants in the city. So with a 750 gallon tank, we have a good water supply that I'm comfortable with that tank size.
You just spoke about making a trip to Volusia. If you make a trip to Volusia, who takes care of a fire in Flagler Beach?
Well, in addition to having our automatic and mutual aid agreements, you know, we do have our volunteers accessible that can get units there. But, you know, we have other departments around us in the county, Palm Coast as well. And like I said, we would fall back on our volunteers if needed.
So, okay, I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Debbie?
I have a couple of questions. One question I have for you, Bobby, and then I have a question also for Larry. So, Bobby, can you talk about, did we look into potentially looking at rebuilt or refurbished engines as opposed to going straight for a brand new machine?
I did not, and I will be clear on that with the time windows that I'm speaking of. I was asked a couple times about this, and to be point blank, I don't want to inherit somebody else's problem. So if somebody has a fire rig out there that's used, or they're calling the best thing in the world, it's refurbished. I don't know anything about that truck. This truck I would know from the ground up, bumper to bumper. And we need to keep in mind what we're pitching here. I was requested to give the exact timelines, which I did. This truck was also I went through an extensive warranty list, so we're covered for a good while. Not to mention the timelines. Again, we're looking for 15 to 20 years out of this truck. In a refurb or a used truck, I can't speak to any timeline with that because I don't truly know what I'm getting.
Okay, thank you. Larry, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Today, when we met today, I met with you and Kathleen, and I talked to you about whether we had a grant writer on staff. And the answer I know is no, but I think it's important that we look to see if there's any grant monies out there to offset the cost of the new engine. That's my first question. Then my second question is also too, I brought up a lease agreement. I think it's important to let our residents know we can buy it outright, we can lease it. I think there's, we potentially could get some grant monies before we jump into this.
Well, I'll respond to the issue of, I guess, a grant writer, and Bobby jumped right in. I know you get a lot of grants out there, but are there actual active grants for Red Eye community to buy new fire engines?
There's an AFG grant, and I spoke with Kathleen at length about this earlier. The department has been very successful in getting grants. We've gotten it for bunker gear. We've got it for a cascade machine, a compressor. We constantly get our grants in for smoke detectors. However, an AFG grant would take somebody basically full-time for the better part of the year to invest in just that grant itself. And I do not have the staff on board that have that kind of extra time to invest in a grant like that.
Debbie, what was your second question?
Leasing the truck as opposed to buying it outright.
Yeah, Bobby, do you have a response for that?
I'd actually like to put that to Kathleen because we did discuss it. And as we were looking for a delta through the infrastructure surtax, and those funds having to be pulled. Can I refer this to you, Kathleen, because I think you could probably answer it better than I can.
Sure. Yes, we could investigate doing a lease, but we would also pay interest. The basic funding of this truck is taking money from the infrastructure surtax and moving it into the reserve. So, I think we could explore the possibilities of financing it, but it really wouldn't have impact on the budget, except that there would be a possibility that we wouldn't have that $17,000 savings. I'm not sure about that. That may be something that might be off the table with a lease type agreement. We would probably have to go out for RFP to get some, response on that. I know Bobby spoke of going through the manufacturer, but normally when we go to do a lease, we do an RFP so everybody can give us, their different rates that are out there.
Thank you all.
To
I
conclude,
can't say with certainty that, that credit, that $17,000 credit, if it's split, if we do some in reserve or we do something in lease or even a portion of it finance, that we will not get that in its entirety.
Okay, those are the only questions I had, Chair.
Okay. Ken?
yeah, I have one more, Bobby, regarding the ISO, which is the Insurance Service Organization. I did call, a couple insurance agents, and they did indicate that my insurance ratings, as well as everyone's, is based on the ISO rating. So I guess I am concerned that in some particular case, if we were not to stay up to par with the engine that broke down, if that was the case with 111, that it could potentially affect the ISO ratings and ultimately the insurance ratings that individuals are getting here. So I just want to make that comment that I did call a couple insurance companies just to get their feel on the ISO ratings, particularly here in this particular area.
Okay. Anybody else? Rick?
Yeah, I have another question for the chief. How many volunteers do we have at this point in time?
Currently, we have 11 volunteers.
So how available are they? I mean, if we had a structure fire in town and we only had one engine over there, so I'm just wondering, don't they come to help when we're in a situation like that?
Absolutely. And in town, we have, and I have to watch when I say this, but our older members are, we have retired chiefs in that bunch. And if you talk about the fire police corps, any one of those folks, with the exception of maybe two, can come and get a fire truck at any time and bring it to the fire scene. And this is one of the things that I've talked about. What is most time intensive when you're getting a fire truck on the fire grounds? It's getting the truck there, it's flaking your lines out, it's setting your pump up. By that time, even if we're working a call elsewhere, even a Volusia and on delayed response, if we can have that rig there and we can have it set up, we're going to be minutes behind that.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I know one of the kinds of comments that were repeated over and over again is the number of drivers, that we don't have the number of drivers. So I want you to repeat what you said 20 minutes ago, that every one of you guys and gals is trained to be a driver.
It's the first class they go to. We have 2 new members right now due to the pandemic that we have not been able to get them through driver engineer training. However, they have at least one of them has attended aerial operator. Those are our staple, our foundation classes that we start them off. But that is getting right out of rookie book. The first thing that we get these folks in is driver engineer. So everybody can get in that driver's seat. The sooner the better. We got to carry that certification.
Including the ladder.
That's why we do the aerial operator and DE consecutive right next to each other. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, just for clarity. Anybody else? I think that we've addressed quite a number of the comments that were in the emails. So I would hope that the next thing we do, if nobody else has any comments to make or questions to ask, that when we can meet people in real life in groups, that Bobby and Larry would hold a workshop where people could come and actually ask their questions, have their concerns aired and responded to. And I hope everybody's good with that. We can't put a timeline on it because we don't know when that will be. But Bobby, I don't seem to be able to get an answer to this. When is the current emergency up? The governor's state declaration?
As of 2 days ago, we were just extended for another 60 days.
Okay, I had read that and I didn't know if that was an old notice. So when does that take us to?
July 9th is what we're looking at.
July 9th.
Yes, ma'am.
Jane,
right.
I thought it was my understanding that with phase 2, we'd be able to start having meetings. So I doubt that
will. The
phase two
emergency,
is going to be
emergency
90 days,
order,
60 days.
the emergency order does not preclude us from having
No,
live
I think-
meetings. The emergency order continues the state of emergency and authorizes us to have, we're authorized to have virtual meetings throughout that now pursuant to the governor's most recent orders, but that does not prohibit us from having them. And yes, phase two of the governor's plan is starting to phase back into live meetings with significant social distancing measures. So just the fact that the emergency order still applies does not necessarily mean we won't be back to live meetings while we're still in that state of emergency.
Okay.
That was my point. Thank you, Drew.
Does anybody want to make a guess at when we might want to have this workshop? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I'll jump in here. I don't think now's the time to discuss this. I think we had a plan in place where we put $75,000 a year into a fund to buy a new fire truck. The commission all agreed on that and has known that's what the plan was. Now we've made it just a little past halfway, and now it's time to get the truck. I think we ought to wait out and accumulate the money. We don't know what life's going to bring us after this pandemic, or if it continues. And I think that infrastructure money may come in handy somewhere down the road.
Kathleen?
So my thought is that it be talked about at a different time. And okay, that's it.
Kathleen?
Okay, yes, I just wanted to speak to the fact that so that everybody in the public going to understand that this reserve, the infrastructure surtax, is reserved solely for purchases of this magnitude, capital and infrastructure purchases. So, and just to, bring to public awareness that it's not coming from property tax dollars, surtax is gathered from the 7%. It's the 1% extra that we pay when we purchase items in Flagler County. And, we're not people come to our county and purchase these items. So it's not great. The revenue that we're using to purchase this truck is not being generated solely from the people that are living in city limits. It's from everyone that comes here. That does not affect the mill rate.
May I speak, Chair? Yes. The infrastructure money, surtax, and Drew, maybe you can help me on this, can be used on any number of things, way beyond just vehicles.
Absolutely, as long as it's infrastructure.
We use it to build the fire station. It can be used on any sorts of city infrastructure that has a life expectancy of over 5 years. So it can be used on a whole large gamut of things. So I don't want everybody to think that it can only be used on buying vehicles.
If I can
And I
jump
don't
in,
think anybody said that. Go ahead, Bobby.
If I can jump in, I just, if there's some miscommunication or some confusion, and I tried to get it out in my notes and my points when I was getting it out, there was never any illusions for me of when we were going to move forward with this truck. That was many years ago when I was asked, and what was asked of me in that department, we did with that truck to the point of the 8-year mark. Now with that, I also stated that there had to be a starting point. There was a $600,000 purchase because there was no replacement plan for that ladder. Getting into 111 and replacing with that, it was never put across with the timelines that it would be the full amount to pay for that truck. So halfway there, that's not where I'm at. And then if you move further, as I spoke in my notes, as we move out to 2027, as we move out to 2033, then that starts to ease, and we are talking about it paying in full, but we had to start from somewhere.
Okay. Anybody else? All I wanted to have was a workshop for the public to be able to address their concerns. Didn't say we were going to vote at that time.
I'm good with
So-
that, Jane. I mean, we can
Okay.
talk about it. I mean, that's a good thing. A lot of people are getting wound up about this, so sooner the better, I would
I
suppose.
know. I'll keep my mouth shut about that one. So is everybody good with scheduling a workshop sometime? Yes?
Hey,
No?
Jane, can I chime in?
Yes?
Hey, Jane, Larry Newsom, can I chime in now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think my recommendation is, first of all, is that we go ahead and go into our budget workshops and use that venue to discuss the fire engine. You know, we got time for that, so we can go, budget workshops are not that far off. So having a separate workshop just on the fire engine, why don't we just make it part of the budget workshop
Well,
process?
because it's become a major issue and a lot of people have a lot to say. I mean, if my fellow commissioners don't want to do it that way, I'll be fine with waiting till the budget. But I would really rather do it earlier if we're able to. Just have it on that one subject.
Okay, because what I was trying to do is kind of force the people to get involved in the budget. You know, because there's a lot of things that are in the capital improvement within the budget that a lot of people don't even know about because they don't attend. And maybe this could be an attractive item to make them attend. However, I'm at the pleasure of the board. But to go back to what Bobby said, you know, in discussion when it came to the capital improvements, you know, the comment was, well, why are we doing this so early? Well, I think I've had that conversation with numerous commissioners, is that I felt like a deal presented itself and I feel like I needed to bring it in front of the board. However, if we need to go further, because obviously fire trucks seem to be a topic of conversation for Flagler Beach. Not garbage trucks, not backhoes, not anything else that are high ticket items as well, but God knows you bring a garbage truck forward. And so all I was saying is that, you know, because the fire truck is part of the capital budget cycle. Just like a lot of things are part of the capital budget cycle.
Right. And that's something I've been appreciative of our staff since Bobby came, since Larry came, that we do this rotation, that we don't let things either fall apart or become totally unsafe or end up having to buy multiple vehicles all at one time.
You mean
So I
like
like
three
that. I'm
You mean
sorry,
like
Larry.
garbage truck? You mean like 3 garbage trucks?
Yeah, like 3 garbage trucks. So if we schedule a garbage truck every however often you need a new garbage truck, that's a whole lot better than buying 3 all at once.
Yeah, we kind of call that smart financial planning.
Yeah, that's what it's
What a
called.
what a
So
concept.
yes, we've been talking about this truck now, putting money aside. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, but it's not like people accusing us of, you know, being underhanded and bringing things out that have never been talked about before and all that kind of good stuff. So back to the workshop. I'm going to call on each one. Debbie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should have a separate workshop for the budget meeting.
Okay. Eric?
I'm fine with either a budget workshop or just a workshop in general, whichever you want. I'm impartial to it.
Okay. Rick, I think you said you were all right with it.
Yeah, having been through this once before, it's going to have a lot of public participation, and it might just overwhelm our budget workshops.
So you're good with a separate one?
Absolutely.
Okay, Ken?
I'm good with a separate workshop. I agree with Rick in that perspective that this is a hot button item. There's probably going to be a lot of comments and I think it would be a good idea at that particular time to dispel a lot of the rumors and misinformation in regard to the fire truck itself, and also provide the fire chief an opportunity to provide additional information that would probably help individuals to understand how this particular process is, as well as people in general. So bottom line is, yeah, separate workshop.
Okay. Linda, do you want to throw anything in there?
I'm done.
No? Okay. Okay, so it looks like now comes the touchy question about when are we ready to meet in a group? You want to temporarily schedule one a month from now and see what's happening in the world a month from now?
Are we
Yeah, we
continuing
can.
to have weekly workshop or weekly workshops alternate with your commission meetings?
I don't know, we haven't talked about that yet.
The reason I ask is if we are, every day that passes, we get more information. So if you can put that scheduling off even a week, you might have more information when you're trying to pick a date.
Okay, well, even if I go a month out now,
You're probably safe, but I mean, we've been living it for 2 months, so I don't know that one is better than the other. It was just a thought that came to mind.
well, we can
I
always
think
change
right
it.
now, I'm sorry.
Linda?
I think right now it's too soon to try and pick a date for a workshop. We don't know. And like the attorney says, things are changing day to day, week to week. I think, especially since we're meeting on a weekly basis, it might be better to wait and see what the governor decides, and then to try and pick a date that may or may not work and have staff, plan for something that we may not be able to do.
Okay. Okay, is everybody good with that?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we will be holding a workshop sometime. And so Drew, we don't need to do anything else with this?
No, ma'am, not at this point.
Okay. All right, next one should be a lot easier. Where's mine? Number 12, Resolution 2020-13.
Resolution 2020-13, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach approving a highway lighting maintenance and compensation agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation, providing for conflict and an effective date.
This is a standard thing we do every year. Does anybody have any questions about it?
No.
If not,
I do not.
Okay, I'll look for a motion.
No comments were,
Well, Penny,
no
was
comments
there
were
a public
submitted for
comment
this.
for this one? No, none
No
were.
comment
Is that what?
submitted for this.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're getting a little silly. Okay, I will look for a motion.
Motion to
motion to
approve
approve
2020.
Go ahead. Go ahead, finish it.
All right, Ken, why don't you do it?
I'll second it.
Yeah, I'd like Ken to have it.
Ken?
Okay, resolution 2020, I make motion to approve resolution 2020-13, a resolution by the City Commissioners, City of Flagler Beach, approving a highway lighting, maintenance, and compensation agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation, providing for the conflict and effective date. Effective date.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Do we have second?
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Chair Cooley,
Yes.
Just to the motion.
Commissioner Cooley, Commissioner Bellhumor,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Chair Mealy.
Yes. Okay, that was nice. Let's have more of those. moving on to resolution 2020-14. Drew,
Resolution 2020-14, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, declaring certain property to be surplus, providing for conflict and for an effective date.
And no public comments were submitted for this item either. I can speak to this item. This is a list of old computer equipment between the police department, fire department, city clerk's office, staff at City Hall. It's basically old computers, old computer screens, some of them working, some of them not working. We've pieced and scrapped pieces together, and they're done. So we need to get rid of them. And I mean, it'll be scrapped, so we'll sell it for what we can get for it.
all right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Schools can't use any of this for some of the training programs they have.
Their laptops.
It's pretty old equipment. A lot of
Too
the
old?
laptops, yeah, well, the laptops are really, really old. I'd say some of them are from 2002. An employee was under the impression that if it was bought with a COPS grant, it had to be retained forever and not be able to surplus. So they had a closet full of old laptops down there. So some of them are under operating platforms that aren't even anymore. They're not even offered anymore. They're not supported anymore.
Okay, I just thought
Good
there
question.
was some other use that they can.
No, just question. Penny, do you normally just put that out on bid to sell it or what? Or just to dissolve it in order to get rid of it? I know some people scrap them because there are some very, very tiny strips of gold in them or something, or some kind of precious metal.
That's generally what we do because we have to strip them of all the information. So yeah, they're pretty much worthless when we're done with them, except for the scrap value for
Okay.
the in gold. That's
Okay, anybody else? Rick?
I find it a little ironic that we're throwing away 42 laptops and Penny can't get us laptops for our meetings. But maybe
like I said,
sometime soon we can move up to our space and time.
Some of this equipment has been here since I've worked here in the year 2000. So it's really
I get it.
some really old equipment.
I understand that, Penny. I just find it a little ironic that you've been trying to get us laptops for a few years, but no big deal.
You guys approved the budget, not me.
Good point, Jay. Anybody else? And I think you said there was no public comment on this. Okay.
Motion
seeing
to approve
nothing,
resolution 2020-14.
Can I have a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Just got it. Commissioner Cooley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Belhumeur,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Chair Mealy.
Yes.
Well, we've got a serious delay going on.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Must mean it's time to adjourn.
All right, number 14, discussion and direction to staff regarding parking fees and penalties. Drew?
And Chair, I can go ahead and kind of summarize this. I know you got it today, so you might not have had time to study it, so I can kind of go through the high points of it if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So in your draft that you have, the highlighted portions is really the sections that are substantively new. I made some tweaks throughout, but those are the ones that are really completely new information here. The rest I've moved from the land development regulations, like we talked about, back into your regulatory code. That was actually done in 2004, I think, and I still, for the life of me, can't figure out what the thought process was of moving this to land development regulations. But nevertheless, it's moving back to the regulatory code. And really what's happening here is we are moving your traffic enforcement completely in-house. So with the parking tickets that are written now, appeals would be handled through the courts. And I haven't dealt with Flagler County. Matt may be able to speak to this, but I know in Orange County, where we did this with Edgewood not that long ago, and Maitland many years ago, that was part of their reason for moving them in-house and letting a magistrate hear them, was we were just moving those cases when appeals did arise much quicker, which helped with our compliance rate as far as fines getting paid. And when fines are getting paid, it's hitting people's pocketbooks, and it's helping with compliance with the regulations themselves. So the first sections you see, the new definitions, that's really all there because we are now creating this in-house hearing system for these traffic citations. And then when you move down to the schedule of fines, I put in there $75 for parking on the dunes when appropriate signage is up. That was just from looking at other codes. It surprised me how many places, even those that have adopted their own in-house hearing system, are still following the Chapter 318 numbers of $30 a citation. But there are some that have moved some of theirs up into that $75 range. So that was really more of a placeholder for me, just based on the conversations you had last week, or I guess it was last week. So I wasn't necessarily suggesting that number. It just seemed like a good starting spot, since that's what some other jurisdictions have done. And then you see after that the actual procedures for how the in-house hearings will work. So the big thing this is doing is it's giving you that opportunity to go and address those fines by moving out of the state system for enforcement. We have more latitude to tweak those fine numbers, and then trying to move these through in-house and just to do everything we can up that compliance rate.
Trying to find it. Does anybody have Rick, go ahead.
You're muted, Rick.
Sorry. We just got this midday today, and it's a lot here to consume.
And that it's here for discussion, so you're not being asked to vote on anything today. We're just trying to get as much feedback as we can, kind of on, are we going in the right direction that you guys were thinking last week when we started on this road?
All right. Anybody else?
Well, I hope so, but I haven't had a chance to really go through this. It's just been.
Are you done for now, Rick?
Is there some? Yeah, I would suggest that maybe we send our, review this each, individual commissioners and the mayor, and give Drew our feedback directly by email or something. Would that work? I mean, unless everybody else has done their homework on this thing.
Well, he hasn't written anything really.
I haven't had a chance to really comprehend it in a matter, I think.
Yeah, I wrote a couple of comments down. Can I move on to somebody else now?
Chair Merely, can I jump in for just a second?
Hello?
Yes, I'm done, Jane.
I hear you. Just, I want to make sure. Are you done for now? I can come back to you.
I am done, Jane.
Okay. Matt.
Thanks, Chair. I
Something's
appreciate it.
not working right.
You're muted, Matt.
Yeah, Commissioner Bellhumor had chimed in. That's why I stopped. So I'm available any day to talk about any of the changes that we're proposing. I've worked hand in hand with Drew on this, along with Captain Blanchett. And there are a lot of things that are not really included in there that Kathleen and I've worked on, to include Brenda researching how to pay parking citations online, which I think in this day and age is an absolute necessity, as well as collection agencies. And over the past 3 years, the amount of revenue we've lost for people that haven't paid parking tickets is just a little over $48,000. That's on people that haven't paid parking tickets in the last 3 years.
Ooh.
So what Drew's proposing to bring it in-house to the special magistrate, I think is a fantastic idea, as well as raising the fine for C-dune citations. If we were to charge somebody with a state statute for parking on the C-dunes, that's a $500 fine. The only drawback is you actually have to see the driver or the operator of the vehicle to be able to cite them. So, you know, our dunes are fragile. They're extremely precious. And if we don't take care of them, they're going to perish. So the penalty, I think, of $75 that Drew's proposing is reasonable. And, you know, we're not using citations as a revenue generator. If we didn't write another parking ticket, that would be fine. Compliance is the goal. But I think the things that Drew and I've worked on, especially bringing things in-house, will be beneficial to the citizens of Flagler Beach. For those that come here that just do not comply with things like blocking sidewalks or parking on the C-dunes or parking in wrong direction, which is a serious hazard violation because you have to cross oncoming traffic twice just to get back out onto the road. So I think the things that are in place, I'm willing to speak about, whether it's tomorrow, over the weekend, my phone's always on.
Okay. I can't find it now. Penny, do you know what time you sent that out? I know I read it before. I heard somebody
12:31.
say something.
Why are you looking?
12:30.
Can I ask a question?
12:31.
Got it now. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment or a question? I actually
do.
thought that some of the rates were too low. Where there? Trying to get down to where the money part was. You really think $35 for a parking ticket is the right amount?
That's what your existing is. I didn't change any of those right now. So that's the existing. And again, most jurisdictions, it's still $30 because in Florida statutes, it's still $30. And yes, I was a little bit surprised by those numbers too in this day and age.
Because as people said, when everybody was parking everywhere, it's less than a day in some places that you pay to go to the beach. So I'll get my $35 ticket and be home free. So the fact that Florida statute has $30 means we can't charge more.
Nope, not what I'm saying. That's actually part of the reason why we're doing this is so we have more flexibility with those numbers. Again, I didn't change the numbers just because I knew you would be discussing it. And I figured that was a better place for you to have those discussions than me to put too much information out there. So by all means, discuss those if you'd like to. But yes, it shocked me to see how many jurisdictions still have $30 for a parking ticket for that exact reason that came up last week and you just mentioned it. That's cheaper than paying for parking somewhere.
Right. Okay, so are other people interested in making these fines higher? Ken? Or is that you just agree with?
I certainly am because, I mean, I had mentioned last week that, you know, that's I mean, and I don't want to use this as a revenue generator, just as the chief said, but I think we need something more to discourage individuals from just parking. The chief did have a very good idea, and he basically had mentioned that when I discussed it with him, is that you pay to fine with a certain number of days, and it's 35 or 40, whatever it is. And if you don't pay it, then it doubles, within that timeline, because some people just ignore it. I thought the chief had a very good idea in that respect. And also, we can talk about this during the workshop, is that the collection agency, as he's also included in there, would probably be a very good idea too, because with it going to the county, we apparently lose the revenue itself. And if we keep it in-house through a collection agency, then we're more apt to get it. Another point that the chief made is if it's $35 and it doubles to 75, you turn it over to a collection agency, they put in their fee, we're still getting the 35 for the infraction. So those are the ideas that the chief had that he didn't mention right here. So,
And that language is in there, Commissioner Bryant. And so we are going where it's not necessarily a doubling, since some of those fines are higher than 35. But yeah, if you get a $35 ticket under this draft, if you get a $35 ticket and you don't pay it in that first allotment of time, it's going to go up another $35. So if it was a $75 ticket, it's going to go up $35. Plus, on top of that, a $5 administration fee to cover staff time involved in processing that payment at that point.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I had a question about recidivists. I get this $35 ticket, and let's say I do pay it. And $35 doesn't mean anything to me. So I come back next week and I do the same thing and get another $35 ticket. Is there a way, if we use, well, that would be just for collections. Matt, what can we do to cut down on recidivism?
Raise the rate. Raise the fine.
That's more of a Drew question,
challenge.
Because
the challenge, I think we could do it from a legal standpoint. The challenge on the enforcement side, though, and I don't know how much time, when an officer writes a parking ticket, how much time they spend, if they run the tag or not. If they run the tag, if the prior citation gets entered into the system, you may see it. But if they're just writing the citation, putting it on the windshield, if they're not being logged, and if we're not checking that log every time we write a ticket, then you don't know if you have a repeat offender. And operationally, that might be more time than a parking ticket is worth, them to have to keep that kind of record keeping and record checking on both ends of that citation process. But so the operational side, I'll offer up to Matt if he wants to comment on it.
Yeah, Drew, I agree with that. I just think operationally it would be counterproductive. Then you also run into, say, somebody gets a parking citation on Mother's Day weekend. And we look it up and yeah, they parked the same place, the same direction that week. But they put in to contest that citation. They haven't been convicted, so we hit them again. That second one, the additional fine, would not be correct because they haven't either paid the fine or had their day in court in front of the special magistrate. So, the parking last weekend, the weather helped us out a little bit, but I was out and only saw 2 violations when I was out and for 3 hours. And parking was definitely better last weekend. The weather this weekend's going to be beautiful, so we'll see how it goes this weekend. We've got some additional folks on, and again, compliance is the goal. So we've got DOT coming in Monday and Tuesday of next week to help with some sand issues up on the north end with the seawall. And one of the things I will be speaking to Ron Mead is about looking into possibly putting the blue P signs that advertise parking. I think it would be a great program. Linda P with the blue P on A1A would be fantastic. Having our mayor with the blue signs that stick out that would advertise our parking lot. So, Mayor, get your blue shirt ready because I'm enlisting you to help with the parking. Linda P for parking.
Madam Chair, I think it's also significant to note that the chief Yeah, I was commenting on another comment that the chief made is that
Okay.
most of the tickets were written from other places.
Okay. That makes
That's
sense,
correct.
I guess.
The
Eric?
previous weekend where we had, right, where we had the park the previous weekend, I can just speak for myself. I know I wrote 5 citations. 2 of them were from the state of Georgia. 3 of them were Flagler County residents, not city of Flagler Beach residents.
Eric?
The only feedback I had is I think the fines need to be higher, both the dune and the regular parking fines. What if I had a recommendation? It would be to have city attorney look at surrounding areas. I know we found 75 for the dunes, but we need to look at some of the other ones to see what some other jurisdictions are doing.
I went through a lot, and they're still at 30, and that's why I keep saying it absolutely shocked me.
Wow. Well, I'll just go ahead and be the guy to propose 50 for regular instead of the 35, which is not a huge increase, but I think that we need to look at both the dune and the standard parking.
Rick?
I really think we ought to find a way to bump up the cost of a ticket for parking on a sidewalk. Regular parking ticket, I get the cost of that, but hindering pedestrian traffic, it should be a more serious offense. I don't know if we can separate that out or not, but Chief, I'll stop by and see you and go through a couple. I'll check off a couple of things that I may have questions on, and I'll meet up with you. Thank you.
How would you feel about raising all the 35s to 50? Anybody?
I think the
You like
finance
that,
director
okay.
has.
I got a couple of thumbs up, okay. All right, Kathleen, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I did reach out to my constituents in the finance departments, and I believe it was Indian Beach Shores, that what they do is they charge $35, but if the ticket's not paid within 15 days, it doubles. And if it's not paid within 30 days, it's turned over to collections. And I think that would be a very aggressive way to collect the revenue. Again, we don't want to try to make money off of it, but if people are not obeying the laws, I think that we should try to do something of that magnitude. Also, I'm looking into setting it up so that people can pay online, because I think that's another thing that deters, there's not an easy way to get it. You get the ticket. I know when I have received a parking ticket, not in Flagler Beach, but I just
Of course not.
I did right before I started the city, but anyways, when I have received them, I usually say, oh man, might as well pay it now, get it over with. And if there's an online way to pay it, I just do it, but I have to figure out where I make send a check and all that sort of stuff. Just a thought, but I think we should be, if we're going to change something, let's make it aggressive and let's get it done.
I agree.
Thanks.
Okay, I can't make a motion, but what I would like is to raise all the 35s. If you look at all the categories that there are, some of these things, obstructing traffic is $35. That's ridiculous. Parking within 15 feet of a fire hydrant is $36. I don't know how it got to be $1 different. So I would raise all the 35s to 50. Parking in a fire lane, might want to make that higher than 100. That's a very dangerous thing to do. Well, for now, how about we raise all the 35s and the 36 to 50?
Yeah, and with a couple of those, the fire hydrant one, and probably the fire lane and handicap parking, those actually are going to be controlled by state statute, but anything that we can move, we'll move to 50. At least, I mean, again, I don't even need a motion tonight because this is just for discussion. And if that's the general consensus, that's the direction we'll go.
Yeah.
When we see it on first reading, if you want to tweak it some more, we can. Yeah, just to let you know, there are a couple of them, and that is those dealing with the fire trucks that the state has said this is as much as you can do, and it's going to be on the lower end. And I just think people haven't had a whole lot of legislative interest in parking tickets. Back to the conversation with Commissioner Cooley, I think cities and the state, they're just not looking at this right now because everything is, these are just really low ticket numbers, especially within the state code. For parking in front of a fire hydrant, it's in that $30 range, and just boggles your mind.
That's incredible. All right. I guess what we're saying is whichever, well, you said it, whichever ones you can change, you will. Drew?
Yes.
Did we lose Drew?
Yes.
Well, that was a
I'm
long
here,
delay.
but I'm really laggy.
And
So,
like Debbie, are you okay with that? Having. Apparently everybody
fine with
is. Because I look at people and they don't seem to know I'm talking to them. You are, okay. Eric?
And it says bandwidth
Raise
is
the ones he can raise,
bandwidth is
yes.
low.
We have to talk to
Yeah,
these
folks,
Zoom
just to
people.
let you know,
Something's
it
going
seems
on
like
here.
Zoom is having some latency issues. Yeah, and I'm sure there's several million people on Zoom right now too. So just to let you know, there is some latency. So just be mindful and allow just a little bit of time between each one. Thank you.
Okay. So Eric, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm good with the 50 and also the 75 for those.
Okay. And Rick's good?
Yeah, for now. I mean, I'm going to talk to the police chief some more. If I have
Yeah,
some
fine, but
feedback. Yeah.
just to get started. And,
Yeah, I'm good with that. Go for it.
Okay. Okay, and Linda, do you have any comments? Who said you could eat? Okay, so Drew, you have the direction you need?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's move on to the ordinance and get that over with. Number 16.
Ordinance 2020-0. Ordinance 2020-05. An ordinance of the city of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending Appendix A, Land Development Regulations, Article 5, Development, Design, and Improvement Standards relating to enforcement of erosion and sedimentation control measures, providing for penalties for failure to comply with approved erosion and sedimentation control measures, providing for codification, providing for repeal of all conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Okay, and Penny, I know we got quite a few comments on this.
And while she's pulling those up, if I can just give one comment, because I did have a chance to go through, I don't know, since we've been in the meeting, if she's sent any more, I haven't seen those. But prior to the meeting, I went through the ones that had been sent. And one comment I want to make, I know you're all aware of this, but so that the public is also aware, the only language in this ordinance that's new is what's underlined. Because I think some of the comments were directed towards the erosion control program that's there, but that already exists. So if it's not underlined in this ordinance, it's not being adopted. It's already in your code. So really all this ordinance is touching on is the response to when you have that those erosion control measures not being followed. And I just want to make sure that everybody in the public has an opportunity to be clarified if there was any confusion.
You did receive one more comment since the meeting, and I did forward it to you. You've received a total of 9 comments. One from Joseph Pizzuli, Ken Atlew, Anna Maria Abad, Paul Harrington, Rich Smith, Lisa Stewart, David Gross Scott, Charles Reinick, and Ashley W.
Is there one in there from a engineer or something, Penny?
The David Gruscott, the Alter Design Groups. You've got Rich Smith, HC Builds. You've got the Home Builders Association of Flagler County in there. One from a girl from a title company. Charles Reinick's a builder. Anna Maria Badge, the president of the Flagler Home Builders Association. And Ken Atley, I don't know, he said Atley Development Group. I don't know what he does. And Jay Brawley, his letter was attached to Anna Marie's email, Terra Design and Management, Inc., and Joseph Pizzuli.
Okay, thank you, Penny.
For the public's edification, can we go, Drew, can you do, why are we doing this? I know why we're doing it, but just so it's out there.
Sure. Well, I became involved when Fred reached out to say he was working on something regarding some enforcement measures, dealing with the stop work order when the erosion control fails, I think is typically the problem, or it wasn't done right in the first place. And so that's the first part of this. It's just finding that failure of erosion control measures is a significant event, because it's, from my perspective, and my perspective doesn't count, you guys are the ones who count, but erosion control is one of those things that in code enforcement, where whether you have this ordinance or not, frankly, we may be talking about irreparable harm, because it's a horse out of the barn situation. Once the erosion control measures fail and that sedimentation is moving into the stormwater system, it's already there. There's no pulling it back and putting it back on site. So when I've dealt with erosion control in the past, I've always viewed it as a significant thing. And I think this ordinance is recognizing that. And the whereas clauses of this is one of the times I'll tell you the whereas clauses are as significant as what's in here, because what you are, if you were to approve what you are doing as a commission, is finding that this is a significant thing that can cause irreparable harm to the stormwater system and downstream the natural water bodies in the area. And so you have the stop work order, and some of the comments that you received, I know, point out that, well, you can do a stop work order if there's a severe threat to public health. Yes, you can. But again, what you're doing in this ordinance is saying any failure of erosion control creates that problem. You're making that finding, you're making your code enforcement division's life easier, because then now they're not having to go and make that call, well, how much sedimentation flowed out. It's just sedimentation flowed out. That's a problem. Our commissioner's already told us that, and we're going to move down this course. As to code enforcement, we talk about the irreparable harm. We talk about the increased penalties that makes available. Doesn't make them a certainty, because we still have to go and present the case to the magistrate. The magistrate has to agree with the facts that we present and grant the relief that we're asking for. And if he doesn't, he may not go to those levels. He may impose a smaller fine. But again, you've already made the finding that it's irreparable. So you've put your code enforcement staff in a position of saying, okay, we know how to treat this. We know how to prosecute this. And the magistrate will do what the magistrate will do with it. But we know what we're going to do on our end in the prosecution of it. And then there were some comments that I saw on the inspection fee, and that's certainly that's a number that I picked after talking to Fred on, when we go out and do these after the fact inspections. I'm kind of analogizing this to the after the fact building permit, where you went and did something that you shouldn't have done. Now we have to go and inspect something that should have been done right the first time. It takes more staff time. So that's why you see that inspection fee, but it's not a necessity. It's just something that came out of the conversations with staff, of making sure that when somebody hasn't done their erosion control system properly or hasn't taken care of it properly, hasn't shorted up properly, that the general public isn't paying for the extra cost to the city in re-inspecting something that should have been done right the first time. So I think those are the main elements of it. If I left anything out of it or there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, Fred, do you have anything you want to
Sure.
add?
Chairman, all I would like to
Fred,
add,
did you hear me?
am I on? I guess I'm on. Is that we are spending time. Yeah, and you,
Yes,
can you hear me? Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, we're spending time going out, finding issues after the fact or during construction.
You're just coming through a little bit.
We have residents calling us complaining that there's dirt in the street, there's dirt flowing onto their property. Okay, we're giving people warnings after the first warning. We just issued stop work orders. That's the only way we can appear to get the contractor's attentions. And then we get the silt fences in place. Then we have to go back out again and see if the silt fence has been properly installed. And then we have to pick up the sign, the stop work order sign, go back into the system and erase the system, notify the contractor he's good. And it's all staff time, you know, and Lee Richards, who is assisting me with the site development, it's just a constant. I mean, I could have a full-time person working on just out inspecting the silt fences and notifying contractors that they're out of compliance. I just want to add one other thing. We have a state MS4 permit that's required by the state, and one of the requirements is that we prevent this from occurring. So they're going to be coming and doing an inspection anytime. And I witnessed one in Bunnell, and they go around and they look at the silt fences and they basically say, why aren't you enforcing your regulations?
Okay, thank you, Fred. Anybody have any questions? Who said yes? Okay,
I did.
Rick and then Ken.
All right. We're in the middle of an LDR rewrite. And I think this warrants getting feedback from the public and the builders and people that are really affected by this. You know, a good stiff wind could blow a silt fence over one day, or there's a lot of reasons that silt fence could be knocked down, and in a lot of cases it can be put back in place in a matter of, 10, 15 minutes. So I just think it's a little too open-ended. It needs to be categorized a little bit as to the seriousness of the event. Just because your silt fence fell over doesn't mean that dirt's gone into the intercoastal. So I don't know. There's a lot of comment here from builders and engineers, and I think it ought to be done in a forum that they get to be heard. So I suggest that we do this along with our LDRs, like every.
Ken?
Yes. I know we had several comments and I read some of them, but some of them that I read, I'm trying. Some of the comments that I read basically said I'm in opposition to this particular ordinance, but they weren't very specific as to why. I mean, I ride around town many times as well, and I know there's a couple of areas that I've observed where the silk fencing has been down for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I think it's totally wrong for, and I'm in support of builders and the whole bit. I'm not a contractor, but I do observe certain things. And if they're required to keep the silt fencing up to prevent the sediment from going into someone else's property or into the to the waterways, and they're not keeping up with it, I think there needs to be something to ensure that they're going to do it. I mean, I know some of these builders are very good builders, but like I said, they made comments that said, I'm opposed to it, but they weren't specific as to why they're opposed to it. If they're good contractors, they're good builders, then they're going to keep up with what the requirements are. And I think it's incumbent on us to basically look out for our staff too, because if they're having to go back out numerous times to do to enforce what these builders are supposed to be doing, or a contract or whomever it is, I think it's unfair to our staff as well. So I'm in agreement with Commissioner Billinghammer to conduct a workshop, but I'm ready also, I'd like for these individuals that are in opposition to come up with some substantial reason as to why they're in opposition to this particular thing here. Does it need to be tweaked? Maybe so. But I'm looking at it, and on the surface, they need to do their job as well. I mean, it's just like anything else. You follow the code.
Okay, anybody else? Nobody else?
Hey, James, Larry, can I chime in?
Drew?
Hello.
Well, can I just ask a couple questions first?
Yes, ma'am.
Drew, you there?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Does this not need to go to the par board? It does, okay. So we
It
wouldn't
does.
be
So before, and that's
voting
why
on
I
it
was actually,
officially
I
tonight
unmuted
anyway.
myself before Larry started talking. You can vote on it tonight. Before you vote on it finally, it needs to go to par board. So you could pass it on first reading, and then if we're able to have a par board meeting in the near future, we can take it to par board, and then it can come back to you. So you're that much closer. If you want to table it now and go to par board first, that's fine too. But you can vote on first reading tonight. We just need to go to par board before second.
Okay. Okay, and Larry, you wanted to say something?
Oh, good. I was making sure my computer still worked. One of the things we experience is, first of all, when you clear land, you make it vulnerable. Depending on the contours of the land that you clear, it can be more and more vulnerable. It's no different than stormwater. All we're asking is that the builders ensure they maintain their sediment, they keep it on their property. So putting up a silt fence is step one. If they do it correctly, and there is standards to put up a silt fence, it's not just running a black fence around the property. Your bottom 3 inches should be sunk into the sand. That way it helps support the silt fence. The second thing is that the silt fence, when you put it up, consider a permit, as long as the permit is allowed before you build, you've already cleared the property. So what we're trying to do is, the builders and I experienced this, and Commissioner Bellium and I went out, when these silt fences collapse after a major storm, it is the responsibility of the builder to go back and repair the fence. And I'll give you a better example. Go out and do work on a DOT right away and look at what their silt fence requirements are. I don't think we're asking any severe, because at the end of the day, silt fence, whatever magically they want to do, we're just asking that you go out, and when you go out and clear cut your property, but you have no intention, but based on your construction schedule, to do anything for weeks or a month, you got to maintain that property, because they've taken all the vegetation off that property. All I'm trying to say is that what comes through City Hall is what I see from a lot of people building homes is complete abuse. And so all I'm saying is that we're more than happy to work with the building community, but if it doesn't go into the intercoastal waterway, if it washes into an alleyway, you're now changing contours of property. So as a builder, just protect your property. Matter of fact, we had a major mistake when we did the wick line, and it was pointed out by a commissioner. We did the wick line. We didn't have our silt fence up, and shame on us. We're bound by the same rules. But I do agree that people need to understand is put your silt fence in, maintain your silt fence until you can stabilize that piece of property. That's the whole intent in a nutshell of what I feel this ordinance is trying to do. I have all the respect for the Home Builders Association, but this is something that can be an environmental issue. You know, and I'm not saying I'm a tree hugger, but I am saying that your sediment is your sediment, control it. That's all I'm asking. And that's all most cities and counties ask too. Again, coming from another county, there's things that go on here when it comes to self-fencing that I can promise you is not allowed in the county I came from. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Anybody else? Rick?
Yeah, my concern with this is that I get what Larry's saying, and I get what Fred's saying. There's some flagrant violations out there. However, there are very minor violations that happen periodically through not necessarily the result of negligence on the builder's part, but there's no provisions in here at all. Fred talked about giving people a verbal warning or something. Doesn't say anything in here about that, but somebody can give you a stop work order on a you know, a small section. I don't know. There's no discretionary separation here from minor violations to major violations, and something that can be fixed very quickly with a verbal warning shouldn't incur a $250 re-inspection fee.
If I may ask a question, Drew, and you can chime in. So if code enforcement shows up, or building department shows up, say, hey, man, you don't have a silt fence. I'll give you this much time to get a silt fence in. That would be a verbal warning. Okay, and we say, okay, we'll give you 24, 48 hours because you just cleared the land. So then Bobby shows up after 24, 48 hours because engineering transforms that issue over to Bobby so he can put it on his list of things to do. So when he goes out there after 48 hours and the silt fence is not up, I think at that point in time, we have to be a little more aggressive. I don't like being passive on this issue. So I do agree. I think a warning is warranted. I know the land development code is very clear. And we deal with a lot of the same builders in this city. They'll throw up their hands and go, man, I didn't know about that. Well, I can't look at them and go, yeah, whatever. So I'm all about doing a warning. But the second time we show up, the warning's already been issued. Hey, man, where's your silt fence? We talked about this. Well, I'm getting to it. Okay. Or we show up and say, listen, your silt fence has failed. Well, I'm getting to it. Well, nothing motivates an individual than saying you can't go any further until you pay this fine. That's all I'm saying is I just want people to follow the rules. I'm looking at the easiest and best motivational process to ensure the building community follows the rules. That's all I'm asking. And
I have maybe a middle ground to throw out there and just to see if it gains any traction, because I think there is some merit to giving that first warning in a little bit of time in some cases. If it's a major case, you might not want to be there. But maybe if we built in that time into the re-inspection fee, so that staff still has the authority to issue a stop work order as soon as they observe the violation, but you don't get to that re-inspection fee unless, you know, that 48, 72 hours, it's not been restored, because now you really are racking up staff time because they're having to keep coming back out to the property. But the other thing I like about that, and then Larry, I think it piggybacks on a little bit what you've said and what others have said today on this, that if the silt fence is easy to fix, then it ought to be the first thing that gets fixed. And if you have a stop work order issued, that basically means you're not doing any more work until you fix this silt fence or this erosion control measure, with whatever it may be, usually a silt fence. But
Right.
so I think that stop work order, you might want to have the prosecutorial discretion to, all right, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get it back up. But really and truly, there's at least an argument to be made. Work should stop until that erosion control is back effectively working.
Yeah, let me throw something out at you, Drew. Let's just say I show up as a code enforcement officer after a major storm. The lot's been cleared. We haven't even had a chance to give them a warning. They didn't put up their silt fence. Now half their lots in the alleyway are on somebody else's property.
No. That's.
I'm sorry, Rick. If I may
Sorry, I
finish.
didn't realize my mic was off. Sorry.
Okay, well, no, it's okay. I don't have a problem you disagree with me, but I'm saying if we show up.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that point whatsoever. Egregious offenses should be fined stiffly. I'm in total agreement with that. I'm just talking about these minor issues. You know, when you talk about them never putting a silt fence up to start with, well, yeah, daggone right. You ought to fine them until they get it right.
Well, I mean,
But
if the lot hadn't
if
blown
they're
out,
ignoring,
if the lot hadn't blown out, I agree we show up and give them a warning. But if I show up after a storm, they never even put the silt fence up, then I think the warning's out of the question. And I will tell you, I'm trying to function just like our police department does. They use discretion on every call they make. And, you know, no matter what state statute says, all I'm saying is, if we approach a situation, we want to approach it to ensure on how it's going to be. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I think we're kind of beating a dead horse here. I'd just like to remind folks what we went through with a house on North 14th Street, with people not following what they should have been doing, and the house is done, they're living in it, and they screwed up the whole Intracoastal in that area. So let's keep that in mind too. Eric, you wanted to say something? Well, Eric's been waiting.
Okay.
I don't, it's too late at night to cover all these philosophical, you know, these crazy scenarios and everything. The bottom line is you make an ordinance to ensure compliance. You have folks go out and use discretion, just like our police department does. We don't need to cover 100 different scenarios about what's going on. We write the ordinance, you have the repercussions in there if it's not followed, and you have the staff enforce it and use discretion. We don't need to cover all this stuff. The ordinance is written fine. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, anybody else before he makes a motion?
Madam Chairman, I just wanted to mention that we're required to do this by the state, and they can fine us if we don't legislate this properly.
Well, that answers it, doesn't it? All right, anybody else? All right, Eric, go ahead.
Motion to approve ordinance 2020-05.
Who was the second?
I think Ken was.
and
I second it.
And
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Phillips,
yes.
Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Humor,
yes, we're being told it's got to go to the par board first, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll say yes for now.
Chair
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
And you did receive one more comment. You did receive one more comment, not really a comment, more of a question from Miss Abad. If she was going to give her 3-minute public comment, and I responded to her with it was in accordance with Executive Order 2070, and sent her another copy of the agenda, and that she could still email comments, and I would provide it to you as well as all the others.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Penny. Penny's stuck in one position.
Having some serious.
Okay, we're up to commission comments. Frozen.
You're frozen, Penny.
Yeah, everybody's frozen. Linda, do you hear me?
I can hear
Been in
you.
that same position for
I can hear, but everybody's
quite a while
frozen.
now. As is everybody. I think Debbie, you and I are the only ones that are moving. You can hear me? Linda, can you hear me?
No, we're still moving.
Hi.
I can hear you.
Attention that
Now,
Yes.
we're doing commission. I'm sorry.
There's,
This is getting
everything's
confusing.
frozen. Maybe it's time to adjourn.
Well, I think everybody had a couple of.
I'm not telling you
try
what
and
to
make them
do,
like
but
we
you're
were.
having some problems here. So that, or we have the workshop, you can bring them up at the workshop. I mean, if they're not action items. Because all your action items have been taken care of. It's 20 after 10.
Well, I
I'm fine with
know.
that.
I know, I'm hungry.
Frozen.
Linda, does anybody have anything that needs to be talked about today?
Nothing
I
that's
have some
pressing.
comments.
I did have one thing.
Okay.
Who had something? I'm sorry.
No, I say I have some comments, but I can wait until Thursday's workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have
anybody-
anything. I don't have anything pressing.
Okay, Eric.
I just have one thing. This is going to be to Larry. Larry, we've been talking about 4th of July in a lot of different meetings, and we need to get that wrapped up. Is this something we can ask you to do to get a position or finalization on that?
Well, I mean, if I understand correctly, we're not doing 4th of July, correct?
That's correct. So is there anything formal we need to do with that?
And Matt will take care of the PA.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, Linda, did you have anything that had to be done tonight? No? Rick?
Wait a minute. I guess the only thing I really wanted to talk about is I wanted to ask Larry if what's going on with these walkovers up the north end? Is FDOT going to come get those things fixed? Or I mean, that's been months now since that stairway got washed out, and we got one of our own with the feet hanging, dangling in the air. So I just hope we're going to keep that on the front burner and get those things fixed.
It is. We're going to get it fixed. I realize it's been a couple of months, but I think we've all been quite busy. But at the end of the day, I will take care of them.
Okay.
And somebody did have a picture on Facebook of pilings that were nailed together?
Yep.
That wasn't supposed to happen?
Nope.
So if you could look into that while you're
Well, I'll
doing
take
that.
care of it. Jeff's on his way over. He'll probably be here first thing Monday.
Okay, great. Ken?
Yeah, since we're back on, I'll just make my last comment and then I'll be finished for the night. I just want to make a comment relative to, I guess, social media and comments that are made relative to issues that we have to vote on. And I'm a very, very strong proponent of the sunshine. And I'll be quite frank, some of the comments that I've seen this week relative to one of the action items we were possibly going to make a vote on caused me a lot of concern. I mean, so much so that I made a couple of calls regarding ethics and this kind of thing here. And I just basically want to say that I think we as commissioners need to be very, very cognizant of what we say and to whom we say it, especially on items that we have to vote on, because I, for one, was in a position where I was not going to vote tonight because I had too much information that came from social media. And I don't comment on it, but I do read it sometimes. And when things come across that I think are basically borderline of violating the sunshine, I think we need to be very cautious. And if Drew wants to pitch in, he can do it. If I'm wrong, that's fine. But I've taught ethics classes. I've been through a lot of ethics classes, sunshine classes, and I'm very, very cautious. And that's just my comment. You know, I mean, if Drew wants to make some comments.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Ken. And it's something that pretty much every commission meeting that I'm going to now that I'm reminding people about, because social media has become so much of everybody's, normal communication, more than it had already become. And it's always been a little bit problematic. And the biggest thing to keep in mind for all of you, and why I keep reminding everyone, is because so much is happening on social media. Remember, you guys cannot communicate to each other, and communication with each other does not just mean picking up the phone and calling somebody. Doesn't mean sitting down in a room and talking. It means, through Facebook, through those message boards, when we've given the sunshine presentation, any kind of communication. So at the front end, if a citizen has commented on something and you see another elected official has commented on it, you need to lay off, because you don't want that de facto conversation to occur and potentially rise the level of a sunshine violation. And on the front end of that, for anybody, whenever you're making a comment, sometimes, the better response, if you want to communicate directly with the constituent, is to use the chat function, the private message function, or to send an email and bring that offline instead of in that public sphere. Because if you are the first person to comment to a constituent's concern, that means you've just foreclosed the rest of your commission from being able to say anything. And I think we had this conversation a couple of meetings ago, is that's, most people who sit on boards get a little bit frustrated when somebody is out there saying, their opinion, but now I don't get to say mine. And it can really quickly build up animosity on a commission. So that would be my 2 cents on that, Mr. Bryant.
That's all I have.
Okay. Debbie, did you have anything that had to be done today?
Oh, nothing's pressing, thank you. But
Okay.
I appreciate Ken bringing that up, because that really has bothered me as well, that, I'm reading on social media things that we should be discussing in a commission meeting before I'm even looking at the agenda or the packet. So thank you, Ken, for bringing that up, and Drew for clarifying as well. I'm good. See
Okay.
everybody tomorrow.
No, wait.
Oh, sorry.
I think I mentioned that we were going to be doing Memorial Day on the radio instead of in the park. And I just need to find out, because I have to put not a program together, but I have to let Vern know what's happening. So Linda, you're going to be able to speak, right?
I thought you had a speaker that was going to do the show. I don't know how that we could all go in and out of this radio.
Well, I talked to Vern about it, and he had it pretty much worked out. We would sit outside. He would jabber while I come out, you go in. So you don't want to say anything? Or?
Like I said, I don't mind. This is news to me. I thought you had a speaker.
That's why I'm
and that's
asking now.
Yeah.
It's a week and a half away, so.
I don't know that it's necessary that I mean, it's 10:30 at night. I can't really think that far ahead. I'm sorry. That wasn't what I thought you were going to do for Memorial Day. So, can I get with you tomorrow on this?
All right, any of you, let's put it that way. If anybody would like to come and be part of the program.
I'm on my boat fishing.
Just let me know within a couple of days. Okay, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, and I did get Pastor Janine to come too. Gonna try and make it as close to normal as we can. Okay, I'm done. Larry, do you have anything?
No, ma'am, we covered the firework issue. Just don't forget tomorrow at the ER at 10:45.
Right.
And the photo op is at 11 and you guys can scatter at that point in time, please.
You want us to scatter? Drew, did you have anything?
No, ma'am, I was going to bring up the sunshine issue, but Commissioner Bryan brought it up, so I already gave mine.
Okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, have a good, what's left of the night.